the boards.
Join us again for Hacksaws. It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaws Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. You do. From the Dixieline Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday podcast as we head towards a great sports weekend. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, Santa Claus from left field, John Riley. We welcome you to Hacksaw's Headlines as we get ready for the holiday get-together. This podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. Last-minute shoppers, great gift idea, Dixieline gift cards. You get them at any of the 9 Dixieline Lumber locations. And, of course, if you got projects you're thinking about for 2025, in-home, at work, back patio, near the pool, think Dixieline Lumber. John Riley, I have told you there are not enough hours in the day to do all this and cover all this. Boy, have we got a lot of topics on the table. How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about how long is too long for a podcast. And yeah, you got a ton. Let's just rip through it.
You're violating the agreement about what you're wearing. I mean, you critique what I'm wearing. What is that?
It's Los Pollos Hermanos. You ever watch Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just it's a chicken restaurant, a chain restaurant in New Mexico, fictional. That's a big part of the show.
Thou shalt never critique my wardrobe when I'm looking at that.
I'm only going to critique your wardrobe when you're wearing that Dodger hoodie. All right. Otherwise, you're cool.
We're going lots of different directions. We hope you'll join us. Just a couple of business notes when we are done with topics on the table, and we have a lot of topics on the table today. We open it up to you. It's called Fans Forum. It's one of the most popular segments I think anybody does on these podcasts. We want you to join us. John Riley, tell the viewers how they can jump on board for Fans Forum right at the end of the podcast.
Okay, jump on board. You got a question or comment in the world of sports, and why in the hell am I so small on the video? Anyways, I'll fix that. And if you got a comment or question for Hacksaw in the world of sports, drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
I must tell you, cannot believe how many followers we're piling up now on my X Twitter account. I want everybody to become part of Hacksaw's Twitter All-Star team. It's been amazing the response we've gotten. So if you're not on X, you need to get on X. And I want you to follow me. Just use my handle at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button because I put a lot of stuff on Twitter, on X, every day. Want you to be my best friend on social media. Next item, you like sports. Have you checked my website? I write an enormous amount of sports every day on my website. There's the address right up top, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. If you read it every morning, you'll know every story there is in the world of sports. We want you to share, tell everybody what we do. Monday podcast, 1 p.m., Thursday podcast, 1 p.m. And we want you to subscribe on the YouTube channel. Thereby, you will get the alerts every time we put something new up on our YouTube channel. And we do a lot of that during the course of the week. And want you to become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Maybe we can convince John Riley to buy us shots of Jack Daniels, and we'll have a meeting in the new year. Hacksaw's Insiders Group. There's a big orange box on my main page on my website. Just fill it out. You'll get on the email list for all the things that we do. So, business completed. A lot of things to talk about. By the way, sidebar comment. Next week, Christmas week, we will be here Monday for the bonus podcast. We will be here. We don't know what studio we're going to be in because John's rearranging things. We might be out in the street. We might be on the back patio. Who knows? Might be doing it on your cell phone. We will be here Monday. Christmas, obviously, is on Wednesday. We're going to push next Thursday's podcast back to Friday. So we will have a great sports weekend post-Christmas right on Friday rather than the normal Thursday schedule. So just make a mental note to that. John, we got a lot to cover. I'm going to let you pick a topic, and then we are going to rant. We're going to rave till we get the fans forum. Go ahead.
Okay, pick a topic. Pick up the phone. Thursday night football, Chargers and Broncos tonight.
Nice headline, Crossroads game. The winner moves on and puts themselves in a decent position for a wild card spot. The loser is in big trouble. The Chargers right now are on a skid. The Denver Broncos heading to this Thursday night game are on a roll. The winner of this thing probably goes to Pittsburgh for a wild card game. That's winnable. The loser of this game has got to go to Buffalo for a wild card game. How much trouble are you in there? Let's just talk briefly about both these teams. Justin Herbert can't do this by himself, and right now, gimpy knee, gimpy ankle, foot issue. He has to do it by himself because he's got no running game, and right now his protection offensively has gone away. His individual statistics are sparkling. Charger quarterback, 16 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. He's been sacked 38 times. And the offense is now down to 302 yards per game for the entire season, which is a little bit just this side of pedestrian. It's not upper echelon in the NFL. You got Denver coming in with a 4-game win streak, while the Bolts have lost 3 of their last 4. By the way, Denver has won 6 of 8 after the rugged start with a kid quarterback, and that kid's playing well, Bo Nix. Denver's got 4 road wins already this season. And 4 of Denver's losses this season have been by a touchdown or less. So Sean Payton is coaching his shoes off. He's gotten his team to a real good situation. We talked about Herbert's struggles because the people around him aren't doing a good job. Bo Nix has got 3,300 all-purpose yards and 24 touchdowns on the season. But Denver's more than just the kid quarterback from Oregon. Denver's defense has 49 sacks, 23 takeaways, and they're giving up only 315 yards per game. So Justin Herbert, he's got the issues in front of him with no running game, banged up wide receiver core that drops passes, and he's going to face a Broncos defense that's coming after him. And the Chargers are on a real bad skid. And I know John doesn't like me to go digging for numbers, but I just like to look at the intricacies of why you are where you are and how the hell you got there. In the last 5 games, starting with when they started to play real people like Cincinnati, and they've been doing this, last 5 games, the offense is averaging only 280 yards per game. Last 5 games, the defense is giving up 419 yards per game. So much for this elite Jesse Minter defense. And the Chargers, stop laughing, this is not funny. The Chargers defense in the last 5 games has given up 55 plays of plus 10 yards. That's what I call chunk plays.
Yeah.
Charger defense has given up 22 plays of plus 20. Charger defense has given up 10 plays of plus 30 yards in the last 5 games. They can't stop anybody. This is tremendous erosion. I feel bad for Justin Herbert. The defensive side of the football looks like it's almost in a state of collapse. They're nowhere near what they were when they had the 7-3 start. And of course, that was against bad quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks. Now they're playing real people. Look what's happened. I'm fascinated just to see what happens. Chargers, Broncos. Can the Bolts defense rattle Bo Nix? But Bo Nix has not been rattled. Like I said, 3,300 all-purpose yards from a kid quarterback. And he's just made that offense much more vibrant, and lost in all the conversation about Bo Nix, Sean Payton, Denver is what the Bronco defense is doing. So you got a Charger team that's got a problem. You're going to have a real damn problem if they lose tonight and wind up having to go to Buffalo in the playoffs. You got a Charger team that's got problems. You got the Broncos team that's coming together. What a job. Like I say, coaching his shoes off. John Riley, bad sweatshirt and all. Please give me an opinion. Bolts, Broncos, Thursday night football.
You know, this whole Bo Nix thing is just remarkable to me because when he was a Heisman Trophy contender last year, but kind of on the lower end. You said systems quarterback. He goes there with Sean Payton. You're not sure what's going to happen. It was a shitstorm last year. Russell Wilson gets booted. They're still paying his salary, and they throw in the rookie, and he's having like quietly a really good year.
Struggled early, has gotten progressively better and better since about week 5.
Yeah. So to me, this is an interesting story. And the fact that they are still kind of in the mix here for the playoffs is a remarkable turnaround for Sean Payton.
Labor Day weekend. If I would have told you Denver would have more wins than the Chargers, would you say I'd showed up drunk?
Yes. I would say you were drunk off your ass. Yeah, for sure. So this is amazing to me that they are doing as well. Now, the Chargers, you know, on one level, we praise Justin Herbert as this elite quarterback, and he is, but there's constantly problems. So is the offensive line just not protecting enough? Or are the receivers just not capable of getting open? I mean, what's the problem here?
Here's my pen. Would you check off all the boxes? 3 number 1 draft picks in the offensive line who don't pass block consistently. 3 number 1 draft picks in the offensive line who can't run block hardly at all. Wide receiver core that's been dinged. Wide receiver core that drops passes. Wide receiver core that, aside from Ladd McConkey, has shown no consistency at all. No running back. They are averaging 2.7 yards per carry since J.K. Dobbins went down with a season-ending injury. How many boxes do you want to check off with my blue pen?
That's a lot.
There's a lot of problems for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, it is. And then it doesn't help when the defense isn't working everything out. So Jesse Minter was this guy that everyone was praising, maybe the next head coach, but his star is fading a little.
Baby, you're not playing elite quarterbacks. They went 7-3 against scrubs, rookies, and somebody's backup quarterbacks. What did I say? You can just rewind it. What did I say the 1st of November when they were 7-3 and everybody was barking that I was a Charger hater? I just said, wait till they start to play somebody. And this downhill ski slope skid started with the Joe Burrow game where the Bengals almost beat them, progressed to Atlanta when Kirk Cousins gave the game away, and then they got stampeded by Tampa Bay, killed by Baltimore, beat up by Kansas City. Here we are. I'm not a hater.
So.
Well, I'm not piling on, but yes, I did tell you. So wait till you play somebody.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here we go. They're playing someone tonight.
Yeah, big game. And again, like I said, winner of this Thursday night game probably goes to Pittsburgh in a wild card game, which is probably winnable. Loser's got to go to Buffalo, and how the hell do you think that's going to work out? Oh, this is a tough game. Chargers should win their last 2. Raiders, New England, both on the road, both deplorable teams right now. But they're in a tough situation here if they have to fly to Buffalo and play a wild card game in January. And you might get drunk and take that bad hoodie off and flash Charger colors sitting with no shirt on in Buffalo and then catch pneumonia. That's a tough place to play in January.
Oh, it's brutal. I mean, who wants to go there? So tonight's game, are they playing in L.A. or are they in Denver?
In L.A.
In L.A. All right. Well, let's see who shows up in the crowd, too.
Probably a lot of orange in the crowd, do you think?
I totally expect that.
Okay. That's topic 1. I'm looking for NFL fans. Get to the front of the freaking line right now on Fans Forum with an opinion. How much trouble are the Bolts in? What amazes you? How bad the Chargers are playing or how good Sean Payton has made that kid quarterback? I'm looking for NFL fans to pile in so you can pile on somebody in Fans Forum. We go from that topic to the next NFL topic.
Yeah, here we go. Lots of games here. NFL spots up for grabs.
Yeah, playoff matchups. And where am I going to finish in a wild card race? This is significant. Kansas City is home. Arrowhead, Houston. Big issue. Patrick Mahomes, significant high ankle sprain. Practiced yesterday. Practiced today. We'll do walkthrough tomorrow. But that's walkthrough. That's not scrambling for your life because of lousy pass protection. That's not making a decision to run with the football. That's not hanging in the pocket. Hope I don't get hit on my leg and somebody roll up on me. They got a problem. If he goes down again, Carson Wentz will be your quarterback. And Carson Wentz is not Patrick Mahomes. Now, can they protect him against Houston? Well, maybe if they don't expose him to 39 passes, they can, but the Texans come in with a really good defense, and their edge pass rushers are really good. Part of me says maybe the Chiefs pound the football against Houston because the Chiefs now have 3 running backs because Pacheco is back with Kareem Hunt and with Steele, the rookie. Can they pound the ball to keep the pass rush off Patrick Mahomes? Houston's playing a lot better with their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, but the real stat is Houston's defense. They've given up only 302 yards per game. The Houston's defense, they got 45 quarterback sacks. You think Mahomes can hold up against that type of pass rush? Houston's defense has got 28 turnovers. So this is a monstrously big game for Kansas City because the quarterback is dinged. And the quarterback is dinged because they got a crisis on both those left tackle spots and right tackle spots in the offensive line. Second game. I know it's been a good run for Pittsburgh. This run looks like it's about to fall into the Allegheny River. I mean, the Steelers, they got to play Baltimore for a second time in 3 weeks. And the Ravens are just rocking and rolling. And Pittsburgh's offense is kind of pedestrian still, despite the heroics of Russell Wilson. Baltimore's averaging 424 yards per game. Baltimore's offense, 49% conversion rate on third downs. That's phenomenal.
Wow.
This late in the season, that's phenomenal. Lamar Jackson, over 4,300 all-purpose yards, 37 touchdowns. And when it's not him, it's Derrick Henry, who's got 1,474 yards rushing. I'm just throwing these numbers at you to show you how brilliant the Baltimore offense has become. Pittsburgh's got a second problem in addition to the pedestrian offense. TJ Watt is dinged up. He's going to try to play. How long he can play on the weekend remains to be seen. Steelers got 35 sacks, 30 takeaways. They're going to need every ounce of defense because I just don't know how Pittsburgh keeps up with everything Lamar Jackson has at the line of scrimmage. Third game, it's been a nice run in Washington. Now they got to face Philadelphia. Divisional game. Yikes. I will tell you, Jaden Daniels been mystical. 3,700 all-purpose yards, 23 touchdowns for the rookie quarterback of the Commanders. But Philadelphia's got Jalen Hurts, who's accounted for 32 touchdowns running and throwing. Saquon Barkley's got almost 1,700 yards rushing, and the 2 wide receivers combined for 112 receptions. So Philadelphia's going to probably maim Washington this week. And Jaden Daniels always had a good season. And the final game's a weird one. I didn't realize this till this morning. Well, Minnesota's going into Seattle. And obviously the Vikings, Sam Darnold's accounted for 28 touchdowns. Sam Darnold's quarterback rating is 108. You could take the last 2 years of when he played with the Jets and those other bad teams. You could add the quarterback ratings those last 2 years. It wasn't 108. What a mystical season he's had under Kevin O'Connell. And his 2 wide receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, 16 yards per carry, got 119 combined catches. So it's a really good Minnesota offense. And I told you, I didn't realize this till this morning. Seattle has lost 5 home games this year.
Really?
In front of the 12th man. That's the crowd.
Yeah.
They've got 5 losses, and their offense is just battered. They practiced this morning. No DK Metcalf, no Kenneth Walker, no Zach Charbonneau. Those are the 3 ingredients that are wrapped around the quarterback, Geno Smith, who's had a mystical season. So Seattle's in huge trouble. They got knocked out of first place last week, and now you got to face the guys wearing purple. Those guys are really good. So, John, pick any of those marquee games because some people are going to get battered this weekend. And how much trouble do you think Kansas City's in?
Well, that was what my question was about, is Kansas City. Now, they have 1 loss, and I think the Bills are the number 2 seed with 3 losses. But now you don't have Mahomes, potentially. Is there any scenario here where the Bills could get the number 1 seed in the playoffs?
Yeah, the Bills keep on winning and Kansas City loses a couple. By the way, Kansas City plays 3 games in 11 days. Thank you, NFL League Office.
Wow.
Mahomes is really upset. Mahomes was critical of the league last week, and then he goes out and gets hurt. So, Kansas City could topple right now. A little bit surprised they're playing Mahomes with a high ankle sprain right now. If you sat him for a week, and I hate to say forfeit the victory, give it to Houston, you sat him for a week, you could have him for the Christmas Day game against Pittsburgh. Or hopefully he'd be more healthy for the Christmas Day game. But like I say, 3 games in 11 days with an injured quarterback, they're playing with fire. Unless their opinion is we'll play him, and if we can beat Houston, maybe we rest him on Christmas Day against Pittsburgh and just pound the football. But this is a real tough time for Kansas City because it looks like they're about to fall off the ledge a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, well, they've been winning just barely for weeks now. So, yeah, look at these other games. Yeah, Steelers-Ravens should be a fun grudge match, but this is a little bit of a tangent point. But
you're going off the circle again.
I'm going to go off the rails just a little here. The Eagles Commanders game. Have you seen the news that spending bill that is being kicked around in D.C. has a provision in there for a stadium in D.C.? What's that about?
That's not true.
Well, tell me.
I told you don't bring up politics on the show because one of us is going to get in trouble.
Well, this is apolitical, but it's a stadium issue.
The Republicans are screeching, we can't pass this budget because it involves a $1.6 billion stadium deal. That's not true. We don't have a problem with the Republicans lying, do we? No. I told you.
Oh, no.
The reality is... The reality is the piece that's in the budget that they're arguing about right now is not the taxpayers paying for a stadium for the Commanders. It's the property at RFK Stadium that's located. They would flip that property into local ownership so that the Washington Commanders could then rent the property for $1 and then pay and build their own stadium. This is not the taxpayer funding a Washington Commanders stadium. But hell, we wouldn't want to tell all the truth about that item in the budget because we're a Republican and we can lie to the people. I told you not to go there, but you decided to go there. Bad sweatshirt and all.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Now you know.
And the funny thing here, the last game, the Seahawks, Vikings, how in the heck can the Seahawks be in playoff contention but have lost 5 at home? They must be undefeated on the road or something.
Playing a lot of ragtag teams, some on the road. And they've fought through a lot of injuries. Their defense is miserable. They had just so many problems defensively. Geno Smith, he's got over 3,800 all-purpose yards. I mean, you talk about a guy who's going to be a free agent, who's really marketed himself or made himself into a really dangerous quarterback. But boy, they got so many problems up there in Seattle. Okay, those are topics on the table. Feel free to dive in here. Fans Forum chat box is now open for all NFL fans. Do not sit there and listen. You need to have an opinion. And to quote my friend Jim Rome, have an opinion, don't suck.
Have a take, don't suck.
That's all one and the same. It's all semantics. By the way, we got one more NFL topic here to talk about, John.
Yeah, some changes with some of these teams. We've heard some big news in Atlanta.
Yeah, lots of storylines here. Let's start with the Raider Nation. Why? This story is it's running like an oil fire. Tom Brady, minority owner, is going to become the lead confidant to owner Mark Davis. And Tom Brady will have huge input on the coaching status for Antonio Pierce and what they're going to do with their very high first-round draft pick vis-a-vis which quarterback should we draft. Now, I don't know that Brady is going to supersede the current general manager, Tom Telesco, but it's being reported that Telesco might check out, that he might exit as general manager if Mark Davis has given Tom Brady all this input into these decisions. Or will they just sit at the round table and express opinions and let Telesco make the decision? This is fascinating. The coaching decision is the first one. And I'm not piling on. I just want you to know I'm not piling on. But the Silver and Bleak have lost 10 games in a row. And they have no players left. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. If there were another quarterback on the street, they'd bring him in and let him play because they've started 3 different quarterbacks. And it's just gotten progressively worse and worse. So Tom Brady, Mark Davis, that conversation is going to be really interesting to see who makes the decision on the coach and who has the bigger input on what might be the quarterback. Second item, Atlanta's given up on Kirk Cousins. How did that bleeping investment go? You know, I like Kirk Cousins because he's a pro's pro. He has put up huge numbers. Washington Redskins, Minnesota Vikings, and to start the season, Atlanta. They're empty statistics. They don't mean bleep if you're not winning and if you're not going to the playoffs. And Kirk Cousins has made enormous amounts of money. He's benched. We talked about the Chargers last 5 games. Kirk Cousins, 5 games, 1 touchdown, 9 picks.
Ooh.
His decision-making has been horrific. He looks timid. He's late. Where the hell you throwing the ball? Why you throwing the ball? And he's surrounded by all the skilled talent. Think about that. 1 touchdown, 9 picks last 5 games. Michael Penix debut this week. Now, I do think Atlanta's probably going to run the ball a lot with Bijan Robinson, take a little bit of the pressure off Michael Penix, but we'll see. But they're on the hook. John, they're on the hook for $120 million for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
And suddenly, it looks like he woke up this year as an old man. Not a very good job quarterbacking. By the way, speaking of bad quarterbacking, Tennessee, what a disaster they are. They spent a number 1 pick on Will Levis, the young quarterback from Kentucky. He had a pretty good rookie season. Then they fired the coach. He has just been a disaster. 12 touchdowns, 12 picks, got hurt midseason. He's thrown 4 pick 6 interceptions taken back for scores. Speaking of bad decision-making, he's been sacked 40 times. And Will Levis said it before practice today, even though he has now been demoted and the journeyman Mason Rudolph's going to start again. He says, I view myself as the number 1 quarterback on this team. Not right now. And in Cleveland, if you had any eligibility left wearing that hoodie, they might let you start for the Browns. Browns have benched Jameis Winston. They're going with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, former UCLA quarterback. He'll be the 3rd different starting quarterback this season. Winston gets benched, 13 touchdowns, 12 picks, 24 sacks, quarterback rating of 80. Can throw the hell out of the ball, but doesn't know where he's throwing it all the time. Browns have given up on him. And, of course, the Browns are saddled with the great contract they gave Deshaun Watson, who doesn't look like he can play either. So, John, do you have any eligibility left? Do you think you can throw? Go ahead. Comments on starting with the Raiders and working through all the other quarterback crisis.
Yeah, I'm like Uncle Rico, man. I got a couple of touchdown passes still in me. You ever seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Yes.
You have. So you know the Uncle Rico reference. That's good. So Kirk Cousins has always been a mystery to me, because he went to Michigan State and then he's played on a bunch of East Coast, Midwest teams. And everyone say Kirk Cousin this, Kirk Cousin that. He never wins anything big. And then he got that the way Atlanta structured the draft and the free agent signing of Cousins, we were all befuddled by the whole thing. So yeah, he's finally hit a wall. I'm happy for Penix, but everything about Kirk Cousins is confusing to me. And it's been that way for years.
Empty stats. I mean, guy throws for 3,500 yards a year. Empty stats. He's never won bleep.
Yeah.
So that's tough. I hope Michael Penix does well. He sure had a great couple of years in the Pacific Northwest with the University of Washington, and he was drafted high. I think he was the 8th pick. And we said, you just gave Cousins all that money. You spend the 8th pick on this quarterback? That made no sense to me at all.
Well, let's hope Penix comes out roaring, and then they can look good on that draft, and then they're just going to have to figure out a way to eat that contract. Will Levis, too, was another kind of meh top quarterback a couple of years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of hope that he would be successful. People were saying he was better than, many of us have seen. He played at Kentucky, so we didn't see a lot of the games. But it's so hard to play at an elite level in the NFL. I mean,
but it's odd because he played so well as a rookie. He didn't make mistakes. Maybe everything around him has deteriorated.
There's no Mike Vrabel, right?
Exactly.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So, and then the Raiders, man, I want the Raiders to be successful. I mean, Tom Telesco, you know him, you have a relationship with him, but I kind of like Brady getting involved here. I mean, he's sort of the savant. He's the guy that mentally knows how to figure it out from a quarterback level. So I'm curious about his input, but geez, just make the Raiders relevant again, as that's all I care about.
The league needs those Las Vegas franchise to be something special.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's just a disgrace. I will give it up for Raider Nation, man. They stick with their guys. They're loyal to a fault. But come on, let's get this going, and hopefully Tom Brady can turn the corner for him.
Did you like or dislike my one man's opinion column on my website about the Raiders?
Yeah.
I guess I won't be getting Christmas
No,
cards from anybody in Las Vegas.
You're always calling out the silver and bleak, and we all love you for it. Stirring the pot. You're good at that, Hacksaw.
Listen, you love the NFL. Go to my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. On the right-hand side, there's a listing of all the different things I write. Go to my one man's opinion columns. Need you to read what I wrote about a Raider Nation. That was posted just a couple days ago. You might agree, you might disagree. I don't give a damn. Just read it if you're an NFL football fan. Not piling on, but I'm not the one that's 2-12 with a 10-game losing streak, pal. Okay, all things NFL. We got a ton of other topics here on the table. Tell you what, let's get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. I've done business there. The reason my house is so warm in the winter and so cool in the summer, they're called windows. They are called doors. He's done business at Dixieline too. John, they offer a whole ton of things, including Dixieline gift cards for Christmas.
You love the gift card idea, don't you? The stocking stuffers, So that's good. I mean, sometimes, you want to get like tools for dad or something. You're not sure what to get them. The gift card works great. And, there's 9 Dixieline locations, including one now up in Dana Point.
Yeah. And the other thing, we still got a few days here. I guess I should start doing Christmas shopping. We still have a few days for you to, hey, stop at a Dixieline store, take a walk around, ask about the gift cards, or just look at all the unique tools that they've got available. These guys are best friends. They'll be your friends too. Dixieline Lumber. We are at halftime, our Thursday podcast going towards a great sports weekend. Just a couple of programming notes. If you love sports, I invite you to check my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. I write on it every day. When you go to the homepage to read my column on the Raiders, my one man's opinion column, also register to join Hacksaw's Insiders group. I'm still going to get John to buy us shots of Jack Daniels when we have our first insider group meeting after the first of the year. Register for that. If you love sports, we invite you also to share, tell everybody what we do, and to subscribe on the YouTube channel, because we do put a lot of unique things up on the YouTube channel aside from just the podcast. We also want you to join us on social media, want you to be part of my Twitter All-Star team on X. Just hit my handle, at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. We're getting a volume of people been piling in to become part of the Twitter All-Star team. And a schedule note. We're going to be here next Monday, kind of a Christmas Eve edition of the podcast. We're going to take a day or two off for Christmas. Next week, instead of being on Thursday, we're going to do it on Friday. Our post-Christmas party going into the New Year's weekend is going to be next Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific. So Monday 1, Friday 1 as part of the Christmas week celebration. Okay, John, we go from NFL football. We're not walking away from the TV. We're going to be in front of the TV all day Saturday. Let's talk college football.
Yeah, including on Friday night. That's when the first game kicks off.
Yeah, let's just talk about matchups. You wanted the playoffs. You got the playoffs. This guy was screeching when I first started this podcast. We got to have more than 4 teams in the playoffs. I said, you do that, that sounds great. Except you might have a couple of 50-7 blowout games in the early rounds. You got Indiana-Notre Dame, the fight for the Sycamore State. Indiana's Hoosiers, phenomenal season until they got punched in the mouth by Ohio State. Notre Dame has had a really rugged, rock-solid season. Curtis Rourke has had a spectacular season for Indiana. 27 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions for the Hoosiers, who are unbeaten till they went into Columbus and got rocked. By the time they got done against the Buckeyes, he had thrown for 68 yards, got sacked 7 times. Curtis Rourke's going to face a Notre Dame team that's got a pretty fierce defense. You know, the Irish have got a good quarterback in Riley Leonard. They got a heavy-duty running back in Jeremiah Love. But the Notre Dame defense has got 30 sacks and 28 takeaways, and that's what Curtis Rourke is going to look at when it comes across the line of scrimmage. It's been a great run for the Hoosiers. But I think they're going to go home with 2 back-to-back pounding losses at the end of the season. So I got Notre Dame beating Indiana. And then we move to Saturday. This is Penn State. That is SMU. SMU's been the surprise team, I think, in college football with their depth, their team speed, etc. But I think collectively, this is the best Penn State group of athletes they've had dating back to maybe the Paterno era. I mean, Drew Allar is a really good quarterback. He's got almost 2,900 yards passing. He's got a tight end fullback who's got almost 1,100 yards in receptions in Ty Warren. That's a fullback tight end, almost 1,100 yards. And the Nittany Lion defense, they're fast. 33 sacks, 17 takeaways. So I don't know if Kevin Jenkins, who's thrown for over 3,000 yards from SMU, or their running back Brashad Smith, who's got 1,270 yards rushing, I just don't know how they're going to be able to move the ball consistently against a very fast Penn State defense. And Penn State's offense, I think, is pretty dynamic and diverse. I got Penn State winning that game. Best game of the day has got to be Clemson-Texas. No place for the timid. This is going to be rock'em sock'em, kind of old school football. Texas has obviously got a very good quarterback in Quinn Ewers. Clemson has got a really good young quarterback, Cade Klubnik, who's gotten progressively better and better. They didn't want him as a starter. He played poorly to start the season. Dude's got 3,300 yards passing going into this playoff game. So Clemson's better than I think anybody thought, but Texas is so good defensively. Nobody talks about the Longhorns. I always talk about Ewers and the wide receivers. Texas's defense has got 38 sacks, 28 takeaways. This is going to be the best game of the weekend. And then there's Ohio State, Tennessee in the final game on Saturday night. I don't know what to make of the Buckeyes after they got rocked by Michigan. They've closed practices. Ryan Day's just really been gruesome to deal with in Columbus with the media. Will Howard, 2,860 yards passing for the Buckeyes. Their run game, combined running backs, 1,500 yards per game. They got two really great receivers in Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuke. How the hell with all that firepower did they lose to Michigan? And they got mugged at the line of scrimmage because they're down 3 offensive linemen with injuries. Tennessee is a great unknown. I happen to think Tennessee's really explosive. I don't think the nation's paid much attention to the Volunteers. Their running back, Dylan Simpson's got 1,500 yards rushing. He scored 22 touchdowns. He's not getting any accolades at all nationwide, but obviously he's explosive. They got a quarterback that's thrown for 2,500. I've never seen this in college football. They've passed for 2,700. They've run for 2,700. I mean, it's a really vibrant offense. But, of course, they're going against what I think used to be a pretty good Buckeyes defense. Tennessee did beat Oklahoma and did beat Alabama early season, and they did lose to Georgia. Ohio State, Tennessee, toss-up. I just don't know what the mental state of the Buckeyes is right now, because that was a pretty bad beating they took at home to the guys up north to Michigan. So, John, Friday night might be lopsided. I think Saturday is going to be a hell of a day of college football. And John Riley says,
yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, I told you, I love the big playoff field. If it was up to me, it'd be 16 or 32 teams. I'm fired up. I'm going to my buddy's house over the weekend, and I'm going to try to get there before kickoff on Friday. He's an IU alum, so this is going to be a lot of fun watching. It'll be colder than hell in Indiana for that. The team, though, that I think is the most, I don't know what the right word is. It's just a mystery, is Tennessee. I think they're the least talked about of all the 12 teams in the playoff. And last I checked, they were number 1 in the basketball poll too. It's like, why is no one talking about Tennessee?
Yeah, especially, like I said, offense, 5,400 plus yards of offense. Nobody's talking about the running back. How can that be?
Yeah, it does. It doesn't make sense to me. So, and it's cool too that, Clemson and Texas, orange on orange. So here we go. That'll be a fun game.
No, that's going to be a street fight.
Yeah.
That's kind of like 1958 old school football.
Now let's say you're Steve Sarkisian. Do you stick with Quinn Ewers as your starting quarterback, or do you go with Archer Manning?
Well, Archer's too young, and Ewers hasn't done anything to sit.
Right.
He's pretty dangerous. He's had himself a very good season, considering the middle of the season he got hurt. But either side of that, he sandwiched really good statistical Saturdays. So that's going to be a good game. Do I go to Arch Manning in unique situations? Yeah, I might throw him in there to run something specially designed for him, maybe even down on the goal line, just to give Clemson fits because they've had to prepare for both these quarterbacks. But I think that's going to be rock'em sock'em football. What happens if Ohio State loses again? Ryan Day be applying for a job to do this podcast with me and you? Would they fire him? I mean, there's a huge buyout, but tell you what, he's not real popular right now.
Where did I read this? People were talking about maybe Coach Prime going to Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Coach Prime is cleaning up in the transfer portal again, so I don't think he's leaving Colorado. But if Ryan Day loses to Tennessee after what happened to him at home in the final regular season game to the school up north, wow.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you got to beat Michigan. That's like the number one requirement on your to-do list.
Okay, you're a college football fan. Fans Forum chat box is open. Your opinion counts. We'll never know it if you don't get into the chat box, so John can put a star next to your name so we can get you to participate. Fans Forum. We always like to have you pick one of the hot topics we're talking about and jump into the conversation. By the way, we're not done with college football, John. You just had to go there. You're always raising trouble about hot spots and controversies in college football. Go ahead, put it up there.
Yeah, the Mountain West. I know there's a lawsuit, and there's news in here about Michael Vick, too.
Okay, let's talk about the Mountain West Conference. You do recall when the Mountain West reached this agreement to allow 5 schools led by the Aztecs and Boise State to go to whatever the new Pac-12 was going to look like. Well, this week on Wednesday, Utah State, Colorado State filed a lawsuit against the Mountain West Conference and the commissioner. And they have charged that the Mountain West is withholding TV revenue from the 5 departing schools that is owed them. And the Mountain West has given paperwork to the 5 departing schools, charging them for $38 million in exit fees, not the initially agreed to $18 million in exit fees. And that the Mountain West has barred San Diego State and the other schools that went to the Pac-12 have barred them from taking part in the Board of Trustees, Board of Directors meetings. So this is kind of really messy. I don't understand why the Mountain West thinks now, after reaching some type of agreement with the departing schools, why they suddenly think they can withhold TV money or NCAA basketball units. I don't understand that. So this is really messy, what Colorado State and Utah State did. J.D. Wicker's not commenting as to whether San Diego State is really part of this or this is just a CSU-USU thing that they've done. So that's topic one. Second one, this has been an awful week in the Pacific Northwest in Pullman, Washington. Their coach went public midweek and just had a meltdown. Jake Deichert's done a great job at Washington State, which doesn't have a lot of resources. His record's 23-20. He went off on the NCAA, on the transfer portal, and the NIL. He says, we cannot continue to operate this way. It's destructive, not just to Washington State or the other team, Oregon State, the 2 survivors in the Pac-12. It's destructive to everybody across the country. I tend to agree with him. Then he lost his quarterback. Johnny Mantier was bribed, was tampered with, and the kid was torn. Do I stay? Do I go? He withdrew. He's not going to play in the Holiday Bowl for the Cougars. He's on his way. He's transferred out. It's a shocker. He's Oklahoma's starting quarterback. Wow. This kid had 3,900 all-purpose yards. He was the heart and soul. And why? They wrote him a big check. And if that's not bad enough, then Deichert quit. He got hired 12 hours after the head coach at Wake Forest, Dave Clawson, walked away from the sport because of the whole mess. NIL, NCAA. Wake Forest has struggled to compete in the ACC, and Jake Deichert has gone to Wake Forest. So Washington State is face down in the gutter. Lost the quarterback, pile of guys in the transfer portal. Now they lost their coach. They lost their coordinator. They lost their quarterback coach, all in the span of about 24 hours.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to pick up the pieces, and they don't have a lot of resources. And Johnny Mantier, he was really pulled emotionally. Should I stay? I love the Cougars, and they developed him as a great quarterback, or should I go? And he's gone to Oklahoma. That's a real bad story. Third one, guess who's coaching at Norfolk State? Michael Vick. I'm a little bit surprised at the end result Norfolk State is an HBCU, a very proud university, African-American heritage, but has hardly got any resources at all. It's in the state of Virginia, 20 miles from where he grew up on Hampton Roads. He also interviewed at Sacramento State, which is in the Big Sky Conference. And Sacramento State's trying to get into the Mountain West, and they've got big financial backing in the Silicon Valley. I thought he was going to go to Sac State, but his emotional ties are back there in the Tidewater area. Michael Vick, just named head coach at Norfolk State. A lot of work to be done. You know, they're way behind the power curve in terms of players, but he's going to bring in NFL assistant coaches whom he knows, retired players. I think he's going to try to do a smaller version of what Deion Sanders did at CU. He's never coached before, but if you can put experienced assistants around you, maybe got a chance to compete. But they're way behind the power curve in the MEAC, which is another black conference, in terms of personnel and obviously in terms of financial support. So we'll see if Michael Vick can make some things happen there. Colorado, Neon Deion just continues to do well. Shedeur Sanders is leaving. He got one of the top high school quarterbacks in the country to commit late and signed at CU. And now he's got one of the top transfer quarterbacks. Caden Salter, Liberty University, 1AA power. 8,100 all-purpose yards, 66 touchdowns in 2 years at Liberty. He's going into Boulder, probably going to be the starting quarterback when Shedeur Sanders leaves. So Deion continues to press the right buttons in player personnel. And the last item is the Ivy League. You know, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, blah, blah, blah. Ivy League has had a structure. You play your 10-game schedule. That's all you play. Ivy League, we don't allow graduate transfers. Ivy League, we don't allow transfers out of the portal. Ivy League has just had a different structure. That's all changed. Out of the clear blue sky, behind the cloud cover, coming out from back of the curtain, the Ivy League just confirmed they were offered and they've signed a deal to allow the Ivy League champion to go to the 1AA playoffs.
Hey,
FCS. The 1AA playoffs is pretty good. You know, that's the Montanas and the Montana States and the legendary North Dakota State programs. The Ivy League champion next year will be allowed to go to the 1AA playoffs. Now, tough part of the equation is the Montanas and the North Dakota States and all those guys. They give out 65 scholarships. Ivy League does not give out athletic grants. Now, obviously, they give great academic grants. So that would be fascinating to see how these top players at Harvard or Dartmouth or Brown match up against really good kids. Montana, Montana State, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. They have become the perennial powers in 1AA football. Interesting to see how the Ivy League works. First time ever. I mean, they stepped away from the way they operated, and they're doing this. So fascinating. John, it's up to you to sort out the Mountain West Conference program, but you can't go to that staff meeting or go into court wearing that hoodie, but go ahead.
It just seems like a bitter breakup, you know, like,
how's this possible?
You know, like, you know, people throwing darts and arrows at each other after a breakup or a divorce. I don't know how they're going to solve that thing. The Washington State thing is interesting to me because on one level, you got these old school coaches that are flabbergasted by the transfer portal, NIL. It's ruining the sport. They want anything to do with it. They don't want to have to manage it anymore. Right. But Bill Belichick has the model. He has a GM. And I was thinking, this is great. It's like a human resources person that can manage all of that NIL transfer portal stuff so the coach can coach.
Everybody's doing that in the Power Four conferences. Yeah. Everybody's hiring a director of operations or a quote, I should say, general manager.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And so I like seeing that. Michael Vick, you know, people are still angry with him about all the dogfighting stuff. So at some point, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with that guy, but I remember when he was playing at Vatech, and boy, was he dynamic.
He was a dynamic player in the NFL until he got himself involved with that other junk. And I thought he was a very, very good quarterback, and he had persona. So I hope it works for him at Norfolk State, but they're so far behind the power curve.
Well, didn't the Chargers have the number 1 pick that year for Vic, and they traded down and took LT?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, I've always liked him. Love him Prime. I hope Prime just keeps having success. And then for the Ivy League, you know, just a bunch of snooty elitists. They're like, we don't do postseason football. I mean, come on, get them in the 1AA. I think that sounds great.
If you ever been to a Harvard-Yale game, I mean, it's cut from a different cloth. I mean, is it equal in terms of big time? It's not Michigan, Ohio State. It's not USC, UCLA. It's not Alabama, Auburn, all the historical rivalries. But I'll tell you, Harvard-Yale is freaking unbelievable to them. In the state of New England, that is the game.
Oh yeah, and I know that the students are always pranking the others. You've seen the one where they had the placards and they put up, and I think it said "We suck." It was like a bomb on those guys. But there's been a number of NFL players that have played in the Ivy League. I mean, who is some of the top?
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, that's one.
Played in the NFL for 16 years. Harvard man, smart as can be. Historically, can throw the crap out of the ball. He does throw interceptions. Now he's on my TV talking football. I don't understand what he says because he's a Harvard man. Ed Marinaro, great running back way back in the day. Minnesota Vikings, started at Cornell.
Right on.
I mean, there's guys all over the place. And the first, I think, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm never wrong. I think the first Heisman Trophy winner, Jay Berwanger, was he from Princeton? Or maybe it was the University of Chicago. I can't
Jay
remember.
Berwanger?
Yeah.
That's a name.
He was a running back 1935, 36, the first year of the Heisman. I mean, he might have been an Ivy Leaguer. If I'm wrong, go ahead. You can call me out this one isolated time in my life, but that just popped into my brain. So I'm happy for the Ivy Leaguers. I just don't know how they'll compete against scholarship schools, but we'll see. We're not done. We're going from football. Here comes baseball.
Here comes baseball, and people are still tweaking out about this whole Juan Soto deal.
By the way, after you go to my website and you read my one man's opinion column on the Silver and Bleak, the Raiders, I wrote a column today on Juan Soto. And the question is, who got the better of the deal? Yankees versus the Mets. So you got Soto, who continues to talk to the media about Mets, Citi Field, the owner, our ability to win. I swear to you, he's never looked at the Mets pitching staff. On the other street corner, you got the Yankees, who within hours of Soto defecting, went into the market and signed Max Fried, frontline pitching ace, Atlanta, traded top reliever Dev Williams, comes from Milwaukee, just made the trade to get outfielder Cody Bellinger, and as of noon today, the Mets were preparing contract offers for Pete Alonso. I'm sorry, the Yankees are preparing contract offers for Pete Alonso, Christian Walker, possible trade for Nolan Arenado, possible trade for Jake Cronenworth to play first base, or possible re-signing of Anthony Rizzo. By this weekend, the Yankees may have taken all of the Soto money that he turned down and flipped it into 4 acquisitions. So you tell me who won, Mets getting Soto or the Yankees getting 4 guys using all of Soto's money that he rejected. And by the way, I'm sure it hasn't dawned on Soto yet. There's no Aaron Judge hitting behind him in the batting order.
No.
So, okay, we got all things Yankees-Mets. The floor is yours.
Good on the Yankees, man. They had a plan B, and it's working for them. So, Max Fried's a hell of a pitcher, as a guy we could have used here in San Diego way back when. What trade was he involved in? Was it for one of the Upton brothers or something?
Yeah.
Back in the,
way back in the day. It was one of the first really good young players that AJ Preller moved.
Yeah, exactly. I know we all knew we were giving away a gem, but he was like in low A or rookie ball at the time. But he was like a number 1 pick. The Soto deal, to me, you were talking about how Soto, admitted he had personality clash with Manny Machado. He admitted he didn't say goodbye to any of his Yankee teammates. And now he's going to the Mets, and Mets fans have got to be maybe getting buyer's remorse already.
Well, they're amped. They got an MVP. But Met fan, put your Rheingold beer down, or maybe it's Schaefer beer they drink in the Big Apple. Put that down and pull up the Mets roster. Look at the Mets roster. Look at that pitching staff. You got to be kidding me. And here's Soto praising all thing Mets baseball. That's nutso. And if they lose Pete Alonso and he crosses the bridge and goes to Yankee Stadium, holy cow. I mean, that's 4 rock-solid acquisitions that the Yankees made within 1 week of Soto rejecting I think they offered him $760 million with opt-outs, and he went across the bridge the other way to Citi Field for $765 with opt-outs. And he leaves a team that was in the freaking World Series, and the Mets have less of a roster now than they had when they were in the National League Championship Series.
Well, yeah. I mean, imagine if they lose Pete Alonso. I mean, and by the way, the Yankees wouldn't sign both Alonso and Christian Walker.
No, they'd sign one. That's why they're preparing offers to all these guys, and they're talking, and this kind of came out of the clear blue sky in the early morning hours overnight. They're talking to the Padres about Jake Cronenworth, and they're
that's
talking
news.
Yeah, and they're talking to the Cardinals about Nolan Arenado to be their first baseman. So the Yankees, it's like a multiple choice exam, and Anthony Rizzo's out there. You got 5 potential first basemen, and they're going to land one of them to go with the other acquisitions already made.
Unbelievable.
I should have worn my Yankee hoodie.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, they've got resources. They got a plan. Cashman has always got things figured out. But I want to go. Have you heard the story about Soto and the skybox controversy?
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on that?
That's periphery. I don't really care about the skybox. I don't care about there was some confrontation with the security. Who cares? I only care about player personnel, what you're going to do on the field.
But
he thinks that's important.
He wanted it thrown into his deal with the Yankees, and the Yankees say, "What do you mean? You know, Derek Jeter paid for his box, but the Mets threw it in."
Yeah, and he wants a luxury suite. But that's what happens when you have money. He's got more money in. Stephen Cohen's got more money in his checking account than you do, and I know you're absurd the amount of money you have.
Yeah, right.
Despite how you dress.
Yeah.
Okay. All things Yankees, all things Mets. Who do you think got the better of the deal? Hey, we do sports talk the way it should be done. I want you to respond to the topics on the table. Are you Yankee fan? Are you Met fan? Just baseball fan? Give us a response to Soto, Mets, Yankees entourage coming to the stadium. God, I love off-season baseball. I love the hot stove league. I could just sit here and do baseball all day.
You know, our baseball numbers are doing really well on YouTube right now, and it's fun. It's the off season, and yet people are still fired up.
This is one of the coolest hot stove leagues we've had compared to last year, which was barren. There was no storylines because Scott Boras held everybody out until spring training.
Oh, that was the Boras 4.
Yeah, and the whole thing got screwed up. Okay, we go from one baseball story. We got more.
Yeah, here we go. Talking about some other teams here, waiting on big deals to go down.
Yeah, we're waiting to see. I guess the correct term at this hour is bidding war. San Francisco Giants, Toronto Blue Jays, bidding war for Corbin Burns. The Orioles are not going to sign him. Orioles refuse to go 7 years on any pitcher. Is Buster Posey going to do this? Will Toronto, which is desperate to do something to revitalize Blue Jay baseball in Canada, are the Blue Jays going to overpay? The price tag is 7 years, $210 million. $30 million per season for an established frontline pitcher is okay, Corbin Burns. But the problem is 7 years. That's an awful long time to give a pitcher because pitchers have a tendency to break down. So we'll wait to see where that happens. Houston Astros, they thought they had a deal to get Nolan Arenado on Wednesday night. Arenado invoked the no-trade clause. I'm not going to Texas. It's a big setback because I think Houston must be facing some reality that they're not going to re-sign Alex Bregman. I mean, Bregman's got to be the next free agent that's coming off the board, but where? And they must have thought that they could have this deal. Evidently, there's an argument also that has ensued that Houston wanted St. Louis to pick up a pile of the $54 million that is owed Arenado on the final 2 years of the contract, and that's kind of become an arguing point. Orioles, they win the battle to get a frontline starting pitcher. Now, there's a little bit of a question mark here. His name is Tomoyuki Sugano, Japan. 15-3 last season. Orioles signed him to a 1-year deal at $15 million. Baltimore is willing to pay the going rate on a salary, but was not willing to go 5 years on anybody, any pitcher that is. But they signed Sugano. They outbid your Giants. They outbid the Mets and some other people. Sugano goes to Baltimore. He's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. Like I said, 35 years old. He's 15-3, 1.67. I mean, he's had a really good career. He's not a fireballer. He's a crafty guy, etc. But Baltimore gets him on a 1-year deal. Other topic, done deal, Tampa Bay. We have talked last couple of weeks about the crisis, Tropicana Field, the hurricanes. We talked about St. Petersburg City Council Pinellas County's commissioners saying maybe we shouldn't fund our share of the stadium. We talked about Tampa Bay up in arms saying, if you don't fund this, you violated the agreement. That means we can look to go somewhere else. And the commissioner intervened. They got the deal done. On Wednesday afternoon, the Pinellas County commissioners approved their share of the funding for a new baseball stadium. That came a week after the city of St. Petersburg approved their funding. Tampa Bay's ownership is also going to put in $1.1 million of their money. So the whole stadium concept now looks like it's rock solid. That this, actually, it's $1.1 billion that Tampa's paying.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, $1.1 billion. The Rays are going to pay. The other entities are paying like $317 million for their share for infrastructure. So it looks like the Rays are solid and they're going to stay, though they got to play outdoors probably. No resolution on what the hell's going to happen at Tropicana Field, repair of the roof, and whether that's going to happen at all. There may be an outdoor stadium for 3 years in the heat and humidity and the rain in Tampa Bay for the Rays, but the new stadium is now online. Go forward, turn the shovel of dirt. Let's get this thing going. So that's really good news in Major League Baseball there. John?
We were talking about the stadium in Tampa and how they had all these major infrastructure problems from the hurricanes that went through there. So are they just piling on with this? Or are they going to be a tax increase on people? Or how is this being funded? And how can they take care of infrastructure at the same time?
It's being funded. The new stadium is being funded from a hotel, motel, bed tax. So average citizen in St. Petersburg, your relatives don't have to pay. It'll be the visitors who will pay. And it's kind of a quaint way to get somebody from the outside, because they never look at the additional tax at the bottom of their hotel rooms. That's how it's going to be funded.
Taxation without representation.
Yes.
I remember one time my family we went into Arizona and went and did all the spring training stuff and rented a car.
Yeah.
They have like spring training fees as line items in your auto rental car receipt. I'm like, it's insane. And they just zing the transit occupancy tax.
Yes, that's what they call it. And it's monstrously big. I mean, I swear to you, the tax on car rentals in Arizona is higher than the actual day-to-day rentals.
Oh, it's just brutal. I mean, I couldn't believe it because they don't advertise that. They advertise the lower price, and you get the bill, and you're like, what the hell? Sagano with the Orioles, wasn't he the guy that we were thinking might have gone to the Angels?
Angels were interested. Giants, they thought they had an inside track, and he went to Baltimore. Now, maybe, I don't know if people were scared by $15 million per, because he's an older guy who doesn't have velocity, or whether maybe his asking price for the Angels and these other teams might have been 3 years, and maybe they backed away and didn't want to go 3 years on a 35-year-old pitcher. So we'll find out how good he is, but he becomes the veteran starter, which means to me the Orioles have waved the white flag on Corbin Burns. So, Giant fan in absentia, would you rather have Corbin Burns or Sagano in San Francisco?
Well, of course, Burns. I mean,
That's 7 years.
Yeah, that's the stretch, but he's a Boris client, right?
Yes.
So he's going to get 7. You watch it. That's what's going to happen.
All things baseball. You got an opinion, feel free. That's why we put topics on the table, so you can respond to the specific items that we are talking about. We're not done talking baseball. Next topic on the table. This kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it looks like some of the bigwigs are talking about pitching injuries.
Major League Baseball conducted a year-long survey about the pitching epidemic. The elbows, the shoulders, the forearm surgeries. This past year was horrific. Rob Manfred and his committee, the commissioner's office, authored it. Tony Clark, head of the union, he sanctioned it. And they went and did an investigation. They just issued yesterday a 62-page report. They interviewed 200 people. They interviewed just retired pitchers. They interviewed current pitchers who are in the midst of rehabs and surgeries. They interviewed team doctors, the doctors that actually do the surgeries. They interviewed trainers, and they interviewed management people. And the conclusion, everybody wants triple-digit velocity from their pitchers. The next conclusion, despite the fact the bullpen game in baseball has now become really significant, meaning starters only throw 5 innings, everybody is demanding the pitchers max effort over those 5 innings that they start. So the propensity to break down is pretty significant. They went back and did a survey. There were 110 incidents in spring training this last year, Cactus League Grapefruit Circuit, of pitchers getting hurt on the mound and winding up on the disabled list from either something radically bad like an elbow or a shoulder that necessitated surgery, or guys just having tendonitis. The theory was guys are throwing too hard in the offseason and then getting hurt in spring training. There were 110 guys got hurt in the spring. 350 guys wound up on the DL from opening day till the end of October. So the preponderance of pitching problems is really significant. They did an investigation. Don't you dare throw a sweeper. They say the sweeper is the trigger point for a large proponent of the elbow and forearm injuries, and yet everybody in the last 2 years is doing it. They also said they should send this memo and this report to Joe Musgrove that the use of the weighted ball in training is also a trigger point for elbow and forearm injuries. And Musgrove is a big subscriber to the use of the weighted ball as part of his training regimen. They did a report that did a survey. Major League starters fastball, or sorry, pitchers fastballs. 5 years ago, the average fastball was 91. That's all the pitchers in baseball. Last year, the average fastball is 94. That's everybody throwing 94. That does, that 94 average includes the dudes going 101, 103, etc. They say the pitch clock has nothing to do whatsoever with guys breaking down. The 5-inning max effort thing does. And they were taken back by the pitchers that they interviewed, just retired pitchers who fought through surgeries, or the current guys rehabbing surgeries. The general consensus among the pitchers, the risk is outweighed by my rewards. I will do it. I will get hurt, but I will get my contract. And by the way, we'll have surgery and that will fix it. Well, that's not necessarily true. Everybody can have surgery, but not everybody comes back to be the same pitcher they were prior to the surgery. I think baseball was kind of, wow, these pitchers know the risk and they're just going to continue to do it. So, John, it's quite a statistical survey. And we talked during the course of the summer about the epidemic, notably with the Dodger pitchers. So what's your take on the stats, your take on the players' philosophy?
It's everything that we've always known. It's just being confirmed. Because, yeah, there's no doubt about it that scouts, coaches, they want velo. It's all about the fastball. And if your fastball isn't going to, do much, it doesn't turn heads. And so they want to hear that pop in the glove, from those pitchers. I've heard a lot of people complain about the pitch clock. And they've said, oh, it's rushing the pitchers. They're not getting time to sort of rest their arm in between pitches. But I always thought that was a load of malarkey, and now it's proven to be true.
That's what the commissioner says. And what about the psyche of the pitchers? I know the risk, but my reward outweighs that risk. I'll do it and they'll fix it, even though you might not be ever the same pitcher again.
That's true of any athlete, right? It's not just the contract; it's just the status and the lifelong goal of being a pro. And now it's on the cusp of it, and they're willing to sacrifice themselves. I mean, look at the CTE injuries in football. People sacrifice themselves for the glory of being on the field. And yeah, the money makes it even more interesting. So yeah, they're going to still keep chasing it, and they're handing out $750,000 deals now.
Okay. You're a baseball fan. You got a reaction to the MLB survey on the epidemic that is Major League pitching. Feel free to join us. Last topic on the table before we get to Fans Forum. This involves 3-point shots and a whole bunch of other things, all things NBA.
Yeah, I heard about these all-star rule changes. This should be good.
Oh, nobody's happy. There's a lot of people really upset. A lot of players are really upset. Just briefly, the NBA has approved a structural change to the All-Star game. It's not going to be an All-Star game. They have had these ideas that they were so turned off by last year's All-Star game. The final score was 211 to 186. All that began was the 3-point shooting contest. Lost all of its credibility. They became enthralled with the idea we got to structure it differently. And they looked at something that I thought was really novel. Team USA versus a world all-star team. I thought that would have really been cool. And instead they came up with this. It's going to be a tournament. They're going to have 3 NBA all-star teams and 1 all-rookie team. They're going to play it's a 4-team tournament, and you're going to play all the games in one day. It's a 40-point win. So whoever gets to 40 in the tournament game moves on to the next round. And they're putting $1.6 million in prize money. So here we are given $1.6 million. The players making $40 million a year are supposed to accept it. That's good for the game. Players are just beside themselves. Within a span of about 5 hours, KD, Kevin Durant, AD, Anthony Davis, and LBJ, LeBron James, just roasted the NBA for doing this, saying this is so bogus. Nobody wants to see this. And what next? We have a WNBA team will be in the 4-team tournament too. I think it's a cheap gimmick. I don't understand it. So that's item one. Nobody, at least then marquee players have been asked about it yesterday and last night, don't like it. Item two, Commissioner Adam Silver. He's got a problem. Now, I don't have the explanation as to why this has happened. NBA TV ratings to start the season are down 19%. 19, that's a lot. Too many games, too many different channels, can't find it. Cable channel Z, where the hell's my game? Yeah. The other thing might be it has something to do with streaming. If a lot of people are doing this, watching games at the airport or in the office, whatever, maybe that's got something to do with it. But down 19% is a real significant issue. The next thing has to do with this whole storyline with I'm trying to decipher my notes. Okay, I can't recall. The next storyline has to involve the Denver Nuggets. Huge trade rumor. Michael Porter, high-scoring forward, may be going to Chicago in a deal for guard Zach LaVine, which is really weird. It's a chemistry deal. They're both are big-time productive guys. Porter's averaging 18 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. Zach LaVine's averaging 21 per game. He's always hurt, and he's always on the trade block. Both guys make crazy money. Porter is owed 35, 38, and 40 mil over the next 3. Chicago's contract with Zach LaVine is 43 and 45 over the next 2, with an option for a third. So this might be chemistry change. Maybe you take my bad contract, I'll take your bad contract. Denver is not the same team right now because they let so many guards go, led by Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So they think Zach LaVine might be a difference maker there. And the final one is San Antonio, and I'm kind of disappointed, but I guess I understand it. Nathan Mensah has asked for his release and has gotten his release from the NBA G League. He's signing to go play with Olympiacos in Greece. He's going to go abroad and play because evidently he saw no avenue to get out of the G League to go back to the NBA as a bench player, defensive specialist with the San Antonio Spurs. So they granted his release, and I think he's probably on his way to go play in Greece. So all things NBA, go ahead. You like the All-Star game? Tell me about the collapsing TV ratings. You want to talk about the NBA trade or talk about Mensah?
Well, the All-Star game has always just been kind of a cluster. I mean, it's the NBA All-Star game is it's arguable if it's worse than the football Pro Bowl. I mean, because it's just a joke. I mean, scoring over 200 points in a game, it's pointless. Now, was last year the one where they played street ball and they had captains and they picked teams?
Yeah. That didn't work either.
No, it's just a gimmick. But are all these stars like KD and LeBron and AD, are they objecting because they think like it's gimmicky, or because they think there's more of a risk of injury, or what's the angle?
No, it's a gimmick. Yeah, we're gonna play horse next instead. It makes no sense. You're gonna play 40 points, wins the first playoff game, and go to the semifinals or the finals. I would rather see U.S. versus the world and just put that 1.6 million prize money up there, U.S. versus the world, and take that 1.6 million and give it to charity here in the States to feed the poor. Now that would be a real step forward, because I do think with a charity donation for the prize money, coupled with all the great Euros that are here against Team USA, now that'd be worth watching. And you're playing for something really significant and special, no?
Yeah, that's a decent idea. I like that. Because what's working now ain't working. The slam dunk contest, the 3-point shot are far more interesting than the game. But what about, this just came to me, what about integrating the WNBA and the NBA players into like a co-ed all-star game? How do you think that would work?
That's far-fetched.
It is. But, because you hear these stories about how some of the top players in the WNBA, they couldn't even make a high school varsity team. Mm-hmm. And it makes you kind of wonder, like, could any of those players in the WNBA at least be complimentary with the NBA stars?
Yeah, but I would want to put anything on the floor that would embarrass the product or embarrass Caitlin Clark and things like that.
Yeah.
I do like the concept of my NBA Steph Curry three-point shooters against Caitlin Clark and her three-point shooters. That's kind of cool.
Well, they did that with, what's her name? Ionescu, I think,
Yes.
from the New York team. So, you know, it's weird how, like, as a kid, I love these all-star games, seeing all these different guys get together. And now it's just like, whatever. I don't really care, but there must be enough money in it for the NBA to keep running it every year.
You like my theory? Fans Forum chat box is open. USA versus World. Donate all the prize money. These players don't need more money. Donate it to charity to feed the poor here in America. How about that idea? Okay, those are topics on the table. We do sports talk the way it should be done. Now it's your turn to take over your podcast. Jump on board in the chat box if you have a question, a comment, an opinion. This podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. It's Christmas shopping time. Think about the Dixieline gift cards as a stocking stuffer. John, the floor is yours with your best friends.
My best friends. Okay, let's start with Angel. He goes, talk about the NBA All-Star game. Wasn't always like that back when Magic, Jordan, Bird, Shaq, Kobe played the All-Star game. Was all about bragging rights. Best from the East versus the best from the West. Not whatever the hell 2024 game was.
Yeah, exactly. I go back. I think USA versus the world for charity. That'd be good for all people concerned. I don't know. John's got some other ideas, but I do like the integration of the WNBA players, not as a WNBA team playing against the NBA stars. I don't think that would look very good, but having them in skills competition, I think the three-point shooting thing is really cool.
Yeah. You remember when the slam dunk contest first started in the 80s?
Sure.
And remember, all the stars used to do it. Now we get like these bench guys that are in it. But to me, the All-Star game itself has not been relevant for decades.
Yeah. Concur. And again, guys don't want to get hurt. That's why it's a three-point shooting contest. So concur.
I mean, how those tickets must cost a ton of money. What a waste of.
I went to an NBA All-Star game at the Forum in LA when I was working in Phoenix. And it was great to see all the players with different jerseys and uniforms. But it wasn't a game. It was as poor as the NFL Pro Bowl. I mean, the only legitimate game is baseball's All-Star game, the Cal Ripken type appearances. That still means something.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
Let's keep going. Let's go here to Chris. He says, Smack Saw, if a Bucks Thunder NBA Cup championship game is played in Vegas and there is no one watching it, did it really take place? 82% of all shot attempts being missed threes has made the game less appealing than I Love Lucy reruns.
Yeah, I thought it was poor. And again, the concept initially was to do something different, but it's mid-season. It carries no validity, does not have a lot of clout. And, the bad guys don't get the play. And I just, that whole concept, it's all a gimmick. And I just don't think it's worked very well. Speaking of Vegas, they had a bad week on the golf course too. The quote, showdown, PGA versus LIV. I don't think anybody watched it. Why the hell it was on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:00 West Coast time? Made no sense to me. Why not on a weekend?
I never even heard of this.
Yeah. The Brooks, Koepka, Rory, McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, Scotty Scheffler 4-man playoff. PGA kicked them in each of the playoffs. LIV guys didn't even hardly show up. I thought it was poor. Again, that was another made-for-TV event. Bad decisions.
What do you think of those ones where it was like Tiger and Phil, and then
back in the day, it was novel. That was the first time, and now they keep redoing it, trying to reset it, restage it, and this one was a disaster, I thought.
Well, I thought it was cool. Sometimes they'll get like Seth Curry or Charles Barkley, and as they bring other stars in. It's like, remember back in the 70s, there was the ABC Battle of the Network Stars.
Sure.
And you got like Joyce DeWitt from Three's Company running the 100-yard dash with Gabe Kaplan from Welcome Back, Kotter. It kind of has that sort of a feel.
Oh, bad TV. Okay, thank you for the input, Chris.
Okay, let's go here to Daniel. He goes, Rancho Penasquitos, hello, from Baja to the Canadian Rockies.
RP checks in here. Do you have any questions about the best topics on the table on any podcast around? Always great to have you. Tell your friends what we're doing here Mondays and Thursdays. Thanks for joining us, Rancho Penasquitos.
Okay, let's go here to David. betting $100 that Michael Vick gets fired or arrested for dog fighting, spouse abuse, sexual harassment, or drug possession. You can't rehab a guy like that.
Oh, come on. You're piling on ancient history. Let's give Michael Vick a chance. People grow through mistakes, and he was involved in a really bad situation. He lost all of his endorsements. He went to prison. He was suspended, but he stayed out of trouble since that point in time. So give him his opportunity. I'll be fascinated to see what he can do at Norfolk State, but as John and I talked about early in the podcast, they don't have financial resources unless he can be a magnet to get people to contribute to help the Black historical universities and colleges. And then can he be a magnet to draw players? I mean, Deion Sanders did because of his persona. Can he get good assistant coaches or former NFL guys who want to coach to come in and coach at the Norfolk State level? So give him an opportunity. Did he make a lot of bad decisions as a kid? Yeah, a lot of guys have, but he stayed out of trouble since that point in time.
You like to see the stars go into coaching, but how often do we see cases where you get like a Magic Johnson and he has trouble being a head coach? Boom. Right, because it's a whole different animal than being a player. When I think of Michael Vick, I always think of Ron Mexico. Do you remember that whole thing? It was like the fake name, and was that during the whole dog fighting scandal?
That's a good question. I haven't thought of that in 100 years, but that was a long time ago. Yeah, but stupid mistakes, paid a price. He lost all of his endorsements. I mean, he was a hot commodity at that point in time.
Yeah, he was going to be like the Michael Jordan of the NFL,
and it all went away. And so he paid a terrible price for being stupid. But I think guys deserve a second chance. The fact that he stayed out of trouble since that point in time.
Well, he's had some success on the television as well, hasn't he? I think like some of the studio shows.
Yeah. So, and he's doing it in his hometown. I mean, he's from that Tidewater area of Norfolk and Hampton Bay, and so that's where Norfolk State is.
But he went to Va Tech, but that's on the other end of Virginia, right?
Yeah, that's in Southwest Virginia. And he was a developmental quarterback who became a really good college quarterback and then had success in the NFL, but running quarterbacks don't survive in the NFL.
He did things as a college quarterback I don't think I'd ever seen before.
Yeah, now everybody's doing it.
Yeah,
because there's so many great athletes out there.
No doubt.
Okay, David, thank you.
Okay, let's go here to Jeff talking college football playoffs. He says, I hope Indiana, SMU, Texas, and Tennessee win their playoff games.
Well, Indiana to me is a long shot because we saw, I mean, Indiana's kids played really hard. And Curtis Works, a fine college quarterback, but it all caught up to him. And they couldn't play 4 quarters of football against the Buckeyes. And now you're going to play Notre Dame, which is really rugged. Notre Dame's big-time offense and a really good defense. SMU surprised me because I thought they were in big trouble in the ACC championship game, and they came back and won it. So SMU is really dangerous offensively. I don't think they're getting a lot of national recognition. Texas is good. Texas Clemson's going to be like 1963 college football. It's going to be a war. And Tennessee is one of the best offenses in the country that nobody's paid any attention to. And now you got this glitch at Ohio State with Ryan Day and can't beat Michigan 4 years in a row. And now they're kind of limping in here. I think the thing that's kind of really weird is I don't know that quarterback who came from Kansas State, Will Howard, is explosive and dynamic enough to be a difference maker. He makes plays, he manages games, he's surrounded by great skill. But today's modern day superstar teams have superstar quarterbacks. I'm not sure that Will Howard is a superstar quarterback. So Ohio State loses. Holy cow, next Monday might be terrible in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. Ohio State expects to win it all every year. You were kind of, dismissing the whole idea of this expanded playoff in the very beginning. You thought there would be these big blowouts, 66-7, and these kinds of lopsided.
Might be.
Well, there might be, but some of these games could be competitive. I mean, can you imagine if SMU won? I mean, and who they're playing against Penn State, right? So imagine if some of these higher seeds, beat some of the favorites. I mean, this could be a really exciting bracket.
Weren't you the one a year ago this week? Or maybe it was 2 years ago this week. You were the one that was pronouncing TCU unbeaten. Look at TCU, and they got beat 51-7.
Yeah, well, but TCU, to your point, they were in the championship game, right? And that's the one that was the blowout, wasn't it?
Max Duggan was a quarterback, and they got killed.
They got killed, but what I'm saying there is that even in a 14 playoff, you still get lopsided results. So let's just hope we get a couple of underdogs that kind of flip the bracket and really turn college football on its ear.
Okay, we'll see. Saturday's going to be fun. You wanted 12. We got 12 teams. We'll see what happens. Next question.
Okay, this is an interesting one. This is from XX Revolution. It says, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, will you please turn on the closed captions? Thanks. You know, this listener I mentioned this before. I think to turn on closed captioning, that's something that happens on the viewer's side.
It has to come at your end of the computer, but how do you do that? I don't
know, because I think the way it works, at least my understanding, is that YouTube has an algorithm that translates it or does the closed captioning automatically. So I don't think it's something that we turn on. I think it's something that our listeners and viewers
If he's watching on his cell phone or on his computer, he can do that?
Yeah, like I know on YouTube, you can hit the gear icon in the lower right, and then you'll see closed captioning as one of the options.
Maybe that's an answer. Check it out if you can. Get back to us. Let us know. Otherwise, I'll give that to John. John's got a lot of free time right now over the holidays. So I'll give to John's about to have a nervous breakdown because we're going to move our studios from here into John's man cave post-Christmas. And John's having a heart attack right now about how I'm going to do this. And I told him my experiences with engineers and radio, my whole life spent in radio. And engineers are always unplugging something and plugging it back in, and it doesn't work. Or does the red wire do something if I hit it with the green wire? So John's, just don't electrocute yourself, because otherwise I'll be doing this podcast by myself. But actually, I get a co-host who probably dresses better than you. But yeah, John, we're in the process of going to try to move our studios into John's man cave, which will be fascinating in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, right now we do this in my living room, you know.
Yeah. And yeah, John doesn't electrocute himself. He's got a studio in one of his multiple living rooms in his castle.
Well, that's why the thing is, at some point, your wife says it's time to move the podcast, especially since we're empty nesters and we got a couple of extra rooms.
Okay, so I may show up doing this by myself, or we might be in a new studio. Just depends whether John takes the red wire and puts it into the right socket rather than the blue wire. Otherwise, we'll start a nuclear war with North Korea.
I knew that line was coming. Okay, let's go here to T. Willie. He goes, can confirm dads love gift cards.
Bingo. Dixieline Lumber's #1 fan. Hey, you go to Dixieline, you tell them to tell their people, hey, we heard about you on Hacksaw's podcast. We love it.
Okay, going back here, Jeff had another one. Uncle Rico is highly underrated. You should see how we threw that steak at Napoleon. You can't teach that. Okay. LOL.
All right, next one.
Okay, keep on moving. This is a good one from T. Will as well. Kirk Cousins has always been one of those placeholder quarterbacks. He was never going to be the guy that wins you anything.
Yeah, but at $36 million a year, don't you expect to be in postseason and have some success and win some big games over the course of the regular season? He's hardly ever done that. And that may sound insulting to say all he does is pile up empty statistics, but look what's happened in Atlanta. He was going to be the difference maker with all the skill guys that they had drafted, the Drake Londons of the world and the what's the tight end, Kyle Pitts and then Bijan Robinson. This was going to be the difference maker. And to see a veteran quarterback last 5 games, 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions, and look timid and look scared and look late on his progressions and then deliver the ball into coverages he should never throw it. So what's happened to him? It's like he woke up an old man.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I'll give credit where credit's due is Grande, who's one of the co-hosts on Kaplan and Crew with Scott Kaplan. He was saying how wherever Kirk Cousins had been, he had excellent coaching. You know, if it wasn't Shanahan, it was someone else. And now he doesn't have that like really high-end offensive coordinator in Atlanta.
Yeah, he's got Raheem Morris as head coach. Their play calling to me is abysmal. I mean, watching Atlanta Falcons games like going to the dentist. It's terrible. I mean, their play calling and their dynamics and what are they doing? They played the Chargers game a couple weeks ago, and I just sat there, I almost fell asleep. It was just awful to watch what they were trying to run and not using all their skill guys down the field. But then he gets in the face of pressure, the decisions he was making. Throwing in a triple coverage and throwing late to guys. He had 3 or 4 interceptions in that game alone.
How old is he?
35, 36.
Yeah. And it's weird how for some players, all of a sudden one day they seem to fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
You know, and then they just can't do it anymore.
We'll see where it goes. Michael Penix, I think we liked him at the University of Washington. I thought what he did his last 2 years with the Huskies in the Pac-12. So we'll see how he does. And they have the running game where they can play some power football and run the ball and maybe take a little bit of the pressure off Michael Penix. And he's dynamic because he'll break containment on you too, and he'll move the pocket. So let's just see what happens in this Atlanta game this week. Next topic.
Okay, let's go here to Javi. He says, Nolan Arenado, I assume, future Dodger third baseman, which would mean he's the best third base in the NL West.
I don't understand how, I don't know, I'd agree with that, but I don't understand how he would fit into the Dodgers. Because you got Max Muncy making big bucks, 10, 12 million, established veteran third baseman leader. Got Freddie Freeman on the other corner. You got Ohtani, who's your designated hitter. So where does Arenado fit into this whole Dodger thing? That makes no sense to me at all. I mean, I could see Arenado Yankee Stadium be their first baseman. And his name's been floated a bunch of other places, but he's dragging with him out of St. Louis a huge contract, 34 and 35 million the next 2 years. And teams have gone back to the Cardinals and said, we need you to pay a piece of this contract. And St. Louis said, not me.
Yeah, it's funny because Javi brings up a good point because Machado and Chapman are both in the division. So in your opinion, is Nolan Arenado still an elite defensive third baseman?
Yes. Gold Glove. I think he's, what was the number I recall? 8-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glove.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he's really good. But Manny's really good too.
yeah, well, clearly. I mean, all those guys are elite, but it seems like if you were to take Arenado off of third and put him at first or at DH, then you take away a lot of his value.
As a third baseman defensively, but who's to say he can't do that at first base if he's pretty good? I
Mhm.
think the bigger concern with Arenado is his statistics offensively 2 years in a row have dipped a little bit. It's not a downward slope, but he's not what he was before. Still hitting home runs, but he's not hitting 285. So if he's hitting 245, 250. So a little bit of concern, but it's only a 2-year contract. You're not talking about 21 years here.
You know what's interesting is you think about like the stereotype of every position on the field.
Sure.
You know, where like the first baseman's the tall guy that can hit bombs, and the second baseman is the scrappy guy that's not quite as athletic as a shortstop. Third base, and sometimes you think of the prototype as like a big stocky guy like Ron Say that can hit bombs. And other times they're like an Alex Bregman that used to be a shortstop and they're an elite defensive player.
When you close your eyes at third base, who do I see? Brooks Robinson.
Mm-hmm. How about Ken Caminiti? I mean,
Well, for a short period of time,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But I'll be intrigued to see. St. Louis is desperate to get pitching, and they want to get out from underneath the contract. I think Arenado is going to be traded. I still go back to what I said, I think it was last week, and I said it on an Angel podcast in which I was a guest host. I'd love to see him with the Angels.
Oh, yeah.
Artie Moreno keeps saying, budget's going up. You got the TV deal done. Well, go ahead. I've been critiquing that Angels should not be shopping during the Christmas period at Dollar General. Go get Arenado if you want to regain credibility with the Halos. If you get Arenado and trade him Reed Detmers and somebody else, now you got cornerstone player, whether that's first base, third base, because now you got Arenado and you still got Rendon and you still got Trout and all these other short-term rental guys that maybe you can get a decent season out of Travis d'Arnaud behind home plate, and you got O'Hoppe, and they think they're going to get Zach Neto back early in the season at shortstop. But if you get Arenado, that's a huge boost to your credibility.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the one that makes the most sense. Now, who's on his no-trade list? There were like 6 teams.
Well, he said he'd accept trades to the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, the Angels. I think Boston might have been in there, but there were 6
and I think
total.
It was either Philly or Baltimore was the 6th team.
I think it was Philly.
Yeah. So, but he's a SoCal guy, so it'd be cool if he came back, but yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out a way to fit him on the roster with the Dodgers. Again, they've got like 100 guys. They're going to have to whittle down to 26.
I agree. Thank you for the input.
Okay, let's go here to Lenny, the cool Dawson. So what with Brady's input? John Elway couldn't graft a quarterback to save his life.
Yeah, we've been down this road before, but give Brady his opportunity. I mean, he's an intellect. He was trained. He knows the NFL vis-a-vis Belichick's demand on him. And obviously Brady's going to have some input, I think, on the coach, and he's going to have some input as to which quarterback they get. They're going to get one of those picks. They're either going to get Cam Ward out of Miami, or they're going to get the kick at the can at Shadur Sanders. One of these guys is probably going to the Raiders. The other guy is probably going to the New York Football Giants. But they need so much help. I mean, That roster the Raiders have, it was terrible. I watched that Sunday game the Raiders played this past weekend, and the network guys just mocked the Raiders nonstop. And if you thought I've been tough on the Raiders, those dudes were doing it nationwide. The whole world could see it. You know, they were talking about bad drafts, bad front office hires, general managers, coaches, Gruden included. Mark Davis, not his father. Do you like my column on the Raiders? I was just to the left of harsh. Or maybe I was to the right of harsh.
You know, last night I just happened to be watching some videos, and I found a bunch on Ken Stabler when he was like in the AFC playoffs in the 70s. That guy, man, was a dynamic quarterback, a leader, and all the cast of characters in the Raiders history. It's one thing that you lose all the time, but you don't have like the Lyle Alzados of the world or the Marcus Allens or some of these big names that really changed the sport.
I concur with you. That stretch of time with Al Davis, risk taker. I mean, he had a bunch of convicted felons on his roster, and they were playing and played well. And he had some really unique personalities. I mean, Lyle Alzado was in Cleveland when I was in Cleveland. And, of course, he dropped dead because he was a steroid guy and died of a heart attack. And Marcus Allen was brilliant. Maybe as great a running back as high school football in San Diego has ever seen. So Al Davis, his methodology at that point worked. But at the end of the Al Davis era, that was a disaster. And that disaster then was handed down to his son, Mark Davis. And this product's gotten worse. And, you know, I kind of push the theory, Raider Nation, you're just living in the past. I understand you won all those trophies. They're dusty and they're dented. They're now in the back of the closet. You've had 2 winning seasons in 22 years. You can't sales pitch me that everything is great unless you're drunk and stoned and not paying attention. Maybe you are. So, I mean, think about that, John. 2 winning seasons in 22 years.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, and yet they fill up SoFi whenever they play the Raiders or the Rams or the Chargers. It's just amazing to me how loyal that fan base is, and they just stick with them no matter what. And they always have the smack talk, because if you like back when I was a loyal Charger season ticket holder, you start talking about the Chargers and Raider fans go, how many rings you got? And you have no answer. No answer at all.
Yeah. But when did you put that trophy in the back closet? That was a long time ago.
Jim Plunkett, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was back in the early 80s, I think. Was that the Squirek interception against the Redskins?
Yep.
Jack Squirek was his name, right?
Linebacker.
Yeah. So
all right, Raider Nation, read my column. You might agree, you might disagree. If you're a Raider hater, you got to read my column. Go to my website. It's just listed under One Man's Opinion column. You can punch up also the column I just wrote about Mr. Me, Myself, and I, Juan Soto. Okay. Next question.
Okay, here, let's talk a little Braves baseball with Rukade. Sir, how effective or ineffective do you see the Braves' Ronald Acuna Jr. after his both knee surgery? What role will best utilize him?
I think they're really concerned about the breakdown issue with him. And he's got hurt because he's played so hard, running into fences and things like that. It might well be that he's better served to be their everyday DH. For a year coming back, just to try to keep him on the field and keep him healthy. Braves have been really active in terms of offseason acquisitions, trying to forge some depth in their pitching staff. And they've had so many significant pitching injuries. I mean, Spencer Strider is not going to be ready to start the season, but they've developed a group of pretty good young pitchers. But I think they have to protect Acuna from Acuna. And I think maybe making him the everyday DH is a safe way to do it so he's not getting hurt again. Because, once you've had Achilles, once you've had knee problems, the risk of that happening again, I think, is greater.
But even with those problems, he's still just a spectacular athlete.
Stud.
Now, I think of him sort of like as on the level of a Fernando Tatis Jr., just this 5-tool guy that can just do anything on the field. But isn't it amazing how didn't they win a World Series without Acuna that one year? It was just as remarkable to me.
Yeah, again, good people around them and really good pitching, but all that pitching's broken down. Last year they had, I want to say 4 or 5 starters gone for incessant numbers of games on the disabled list with elbows and shoulders and forearms.
Well, one of those pitchers, I think I just saw a headline today. Was it Soroka?
Yes.
That signed with the Nationals.
Yeah, and he was a really promising star, and he had 2 years of shoulder surgeries, and just they gave up on him, and he bounced all over the place. He was with the White Sox and with the Tigers. It just didn't look like the same pitcher. So he may have signed with Washington, but he's got to prove that he can be what he used to be, because he was really a bright light.
Oh, he was. Yeah. Before he got hurt, he was very special.
On we go. Next question.
On we go. Let's go to Johnny talking about the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. He says, Mahomes has no room to complain to the NFL since they have refs on their side.
Illegal procedure. False start. Not on anybody wearing a red helmet, though. Never, ever. Their left tackles and their right tackles are guilty so much. I think it's an embarrassment for the National Football League that we can see it. The guys on network TV are calling it, and they don't call their left tackle, right tackle for lining up a step off or moving a split second before the ball snapped. They never call that stuff. And those tackles that's the reason Mahomes has not had statistically the kind of season he used to have, and why Mahomes has been battered this year, has been sacked so much and turned it over. And now they got Mahomes hurt. But the league officiating, I think, has been really shabby. There's been a lot of stuff going on this year with blown calls, missed calls, ignored calls. The face mask penalties, the hits on Joe Burrow. Zach Taylor, the coach in Cincinnati, I think has sent videos, like 11 different incidents in which Joe Burrow's gotten smacked in the head, hit across the cage in the face mask of the shield, never called a penalty. How's that possible?
Yeah, and especially when you've got the eye in the sky, that's kind of watching the replay. Yeah. Why don't they just quickly interrupt and say, yeah, hands to the face, rough on the QB? But, this conspiracy theory about the refs and the Chiefs has been going on for a while. But I saw a picture online when Chiefs are playing the Chargers, and the Chiefs offensive lineman had like Khalil Mack, had his hand up into his face, into his face guard, almost twisting his helmet off, and no call.
I think maybe because of the issues with blown calls, missed calls, this might lead to another conversation. Off-season competition committee, instant replay coach has a right to challenge a non-call on the field. Now, that may create a whole bunch of things, but maybe you just structure it. It can only involve a quarterback, late hit, blows to the face mask, things of that nature. But, I mean, I've watched a lot of Cincinnati games, and Joe Burrow has taken fierce beating.
Oh, he's upset.
Yeah, and he's really upset. Zach Taylor's really upset because they're not calling any of it. I understand it happens. I understand there's incidental stuff, but when he gets clubbed across the front of his helmet, when the ball's already gone and they don't call it, and he gets this, and they don't call it.
Well, what's the rationale that some players are reviewable and some are not? I don't get that. Everything should be reviewable.
Well, but then we don't want to get a lifetime instant replay because that'd really screw up the flow of the game. But
you only get so many instant challenges. Yeah.
But some of those penalty calls are not challengeable. Pass interference is not challengeable.
They should be.
Well,
right.
But I think it's been a pretty ratty year. I mean, we talk about balls and strikes and moving strike zones and the Angel Hernandez crisis in baseball. I think this has really been a bad year in the National Football League for blown calls, missed calls.
It's interesting because you can apply technology to baseball, but not necessarily to football.
No, you can. You can
maybe getting your foot down on the ground or inbound, out of
but
bounds.
You can apply technology if you're willing to install it as a challengeable offense. You can understand when Joe Burrow gets smacked across the face by a forearm, that's blow to the helmet. It's right there. Maybe the game's so fast the official missed it, but you got the instant replay challenge. Everybody's got the angles to look at.
We should get like vibration sensors in all these helmets.
Use the instant replay. Maybe you figure a way to make it work to protect the quarterback. Because this year more than other years, I've seen so many botched calls. Okay, good question. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep on moving. And Lenny had another comment. He says Bills own the tiebreaker, I guess, for the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, with Kansas City.
Yeah, but I think it's a 2-game difference, isn't it?
Yes.
And there's 3 games to go. So Kansas City would have to really tank to miss the playoffs. Here's a comment from Winnipeg Sports Talk. Happy holidays to Hacksaw and crew.
Hear, hear. Portage and Maine, coldest street corner in North America. I've been there when I was doing hockey. I like Winnipeg, but I don't think I'd be in Winnipeg in January.
Yeah. I mean, what's the weather like in Winnipeg right now? I don't even know.
Well, I'll give you the sheet of paper. You can do the long division, Celsius versus Fahrenheit, because I was never good in new math. But the wind she does blow there in Winnipeg, because that's flat prairies. Now you go north to Edmonton, that's a whole different world, and it bleeping snows a lot in Edmonton and Calgary. But I love the Great White North.
You know, before we started the podcast today, I drove to get to run some errands. It was 80 degrees in San Diego.
Yeah.
While I'm driving around, and it's like, hey, it's not a bad place to be.
And because we bought windows and doors at Dixieline, inside my house is like 64, and we always keep it cool.
Yeah.
But today's an odd day. And I'm sorry, Winnipeg, that this guy wearing his crap sweatshirt would bring this warm weather up while you're shivering there.
This sweatshirt is if you know, you know.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if you're a fan of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, this is a great shirt.
You're big in New Mexico. Okay. Winnipeg, thanks for joining us in the old Canada Network.
All right, Jeff says, go Vikes for the sake of my Cardinals, because I guess they're playing the Seahawks.
Arizona's kind of fallen apart. You know, they had a hot spell, and I was of the opinion Jonathan Gannon's really flipped this thing. I said, but they play 4 road games in the next 6 weeks, and the road games have kind of caught up to them. So they're scuffling again just a little bit. Can Arizona make it? I don't know. The whole NFC West is just upside down. Who's in first place today at lunchtime? Rams.
The Rams.
The Rams are in first place. Can you believe that? The Rams were 1-4 when the season started. They were in first place. What a job Sean McVay has done.
You said their season was over in September.
Yeah.
And it ain't over till it's over.
Well, I knew it was going to be painful because they were playing so many kids on defense. And then, you know, Puka Nacua got hurt. Cooper Kupp was not cleared to play. And now look at what's happened since those guys came back. And those kids who are force-fed defensively, they were playing with their hair on fire. I mean, they're right now a really tough team. Now, they're going to get to the playoffs. They might be one and done because playoffs are a whole different storyline. But what a job Sean McVay's done. And Stafford has willed them to victory. And now Puka and Cooper, they're going to get the tight end back. Tyler Higbee's just been activated. He's been gone since last year with a knee injury or a broken leg. He's back. So, I mean, they got all their weapons finally together at the most important time of the season. Playoffs are just around the corner.
You know, I think it'd be awesome to be a Rams play-by-play guy because you get to say Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp all the time, and those names are kind of fun to say.
And you'd say number 18 and number 10. Now, I tell you, I've become a real big Matthew Stafford fan, and I'm violating the rules in the press box, no cheering in the press box, but he's such a hell of a guy. He's such a great leader. He does so many things for charity back in Detroit still, and obviously in Southern California. He's just a great man. Lovely family. His wife's a cancer survivor, and they've done so much for cancer victims. He's my, if I had a vote for Walter Payton Man of the Year, Matthew Stafford probably gets a chunk of it.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, and I know his wife is very outspoken on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but like I say, he's such a great leader. I mean, this turned out to be a win-win trade.
Oh, totally.
Because Detroit would not be Detroit were it not for Jared Goff's emergence. I mean, Jared Goff last week threw for 495 and 5 touchdowns.
Well, yeah, the Lion fans got to be so pleased by that because it seemed like a lopsided trade at the time.
It seemed like he was going to commit. You got a guy to manage your games offensively, never done anything in LA, and he's grown under Dan Campbell. And we knew what Stafford had done in a really bad situation in Detroit. Look what Stafford's done with everything that Sean McVay's given him around him. I think Stafford's just a hell of a guy.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, right on.
Okay. On we go. Thanks for the LA comment.
Okay, let's go here to Joey. Will the Raiders get the number 1 pick or the Giants?
Well, we've got 3 weeks to go. I mean, that'll be sorted out in the next 3. But the Raiders have no offense. The Giants don't have much offense either. They're both going to get quarterbacks, so I don't think it really matters. And they're so desperate at that position that I don't think either one would trade down and try to get a bonanza of draft picks. That doesn't solve their problem. You got to have a good quarterback. I think from the Raiders' perspective, if you bring in a Shedeur Sanders or you're bringing Cam Ward, and those guys are probably going to be 1-2-2-1, you're going to put them on that offense where they fired the coordinators a couple of years in a row and you got Antonio Pierce, the head coach. Is that the right guy to be your head coach? Or are you going to hire a new head coach who comes from an offensive background? And that's where Tom Brady's influence, I think, is going to carry a lot of clout here. And I don't know whether Brady winds up as the decision maker and whether Tom Telesco is going to exit. I hope not. Or Telesco has drafted. They had a good draft, and I got a bunch of guys hurt. They had a good draft. They're force feeding all their guys, and their quarterback situation is just a mess. So they're both going to draft quarterback at the top of the board, but we got 3 weeks to go to decide who's 1 and who's 1A.
Well, 2 questions. Number 1, do you think Shedeur is the first quarterback taken? And then number 2, what's your take on Coach Prime trying to do what Archie Manning did, trying to manipulate who drafts his kid?
Doesn't matter. They're both going to big places. New York is New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Eli wound up when his dad forced the trade from the Chargers. But Vegas is Vegas, and the league really needs a marquee franchise in Las Vegas. And it's going to be win-win for either. The workouts leading up to the draft are going to be monumentally big, because then the pro scouts come in and at the combine, and then the individual workouts, they'll put them through a regimen. I want to see you make this play. Can you make this pass? And can you do all these other things? So, are you a student of the game, or is it all about just being a guy, being out in public and being a personality? So that's going to be fascinating to see when they go through the workouts. I mean, Cam Ward has really been proven. I mean, Cam Ward was a small college kid at Division I AA in Incarnate Word in Texas. He went to Washington State. He did really well. And then he opted out and went to Miami this year. And he put up staggering statistics, kind of one-man show in Miami. So he can throw the ball all over the place. And Shedeur has grown up in a football family. So I think it's win-win for either one. But again, you got to have good people around them. And the Giants and the Raiders support staff is just horrible.
Yeah, it's just terrible. To use Charles Barkley comments here. Okay, got a weather report here from the Great White North. This is from Fit Power. He says -15 Celsius. What does that say? 5 inches?
Yeah.
In Winnipeg right now?
So it'd be winter in the Great White North.
Yeah.
So -15 Celsius. Here, you do the math. What does that equate to in terms of Fahrenheit?
That's probably around 20 maybe, or
no,
15?
Isn't 0
is
Celsius 32?
32 Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Okay, so if it's -15,
so then it's probably, I'm guessing it's still a positive number for Fahrenheit, but
smart guy, you got
5
the
and
damn
15?
cell phone, the smartphone. Just type it into there, and it'll figure it out. -15 in Winnipeg. Oh, Canada Network, thanks for being with us. Tell all your friends who we are and what we do once you're done with Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks for joining us here in the States. Go ahead, next one.
Okay, let's go to Callan. What a win for the Ducks last night over the league-leading Jets. Was Winnipeg on the back end of a back-to-back? Sure, but quite a win for a young Ducks team. Long road to go still, I know.
Well, they're making progress. Sadly, the San Diego Gulls just can't score goals on a consistent basis, and they're in the midst of a road trip, and they're not winning down here, which is really bad for hockey fans in San Diego, because this happens to be a really good hockey market. But the Gulls kids are really coming along, and I was kind of critical of the trade of their defenseman to the St. Louis Blues last week, because I thought they needed instant help. Instead, they got a 2027 draft pick for Cam Fowler. But they're making progress. They need consistency. They're not getting it. And of course, Trevor Zegras is hurt again. But they got strength in numbers. I mean, they might have the youngest defense in the NHL now in front of the kid goaltender, Lucas Dostal. And John Gibson's playing better since coming off the injured list. And I think they're shopping him. That's probably that'll be the last trade. That'll be when Gibson is gone. That'll be the last player from the Stanley Cup team that exits the roster. So they're not there. They need to continue to build, and they're building skill guys, and they're going to have another high draft pick this year because they still are in last place. And obviously they're playing all their young defensemen, probably the youngest blue line core in the whole league. And some nights that's good, and some nights that's So they're making progress. I wish our product here was better, because I feel bad for the Gulls leadership, the coaching. I feel bad for the fans, because this looks disastrous again. I think the Gulls have played, I want to say 26 games now, and they've won only 8.
Ooh.
A bunch of overtime losses too, but it's tough to score goals. They get too many kids, and they're just not scoring goals with any consistency at all.
Well, the Ducks' opponent were the Winnipeg Jets.
Yep.
I mean, what's your take on the Jets this year?
They were 14-1 out of the gate, but they kind of cooled off. But that's still a pretty good hockey team. You still got 2/3 of a season to go, and they'll be a force. Got to stay healthy. But 14-1 was wow. But then they've kind of hit a bumpy road lately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Want to do some social media?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Let's go down our list and okay, let's talk a little Juan Soto. And this is from Jeremy. He goes, Padre fan here. When an owner worth $22 billion loses out in the Ohtani bidding war, and then his team loses in the playoffs to the team that got Ohtani, something like this is bound to happen. Having that much money and sticking your thumb in the eye of your crosstown rivals and the attention of the team that beat you in the NLCS. If you're a multi-billionaire, that's priceless.
Well, you got Steinbrenner versus Cohen, and Cohen is very open. Screw the luxury tax. I don't care. You know, there's talk. I mean, the Mets aren't done, although they gave Soto a wad of money. They haven't. I don't think they've gotten any guys that change anything in their pitching staff. The theory is that they might have a payroll of $380 million by the time we get done with the winter, which is absolutely amazing. Yeah. But you know, that's out there. Maybe what if? All we know is what the Mets paid to get Soto, and now what the Yankees have done in response. I mean, the Yankees have got 3, and they're now making contract offers to go get a first baseman. And if they steal Pete Alonso and he becomes the Yankee first baseman, what the hell are the Mets? What kind of team are they going to have? Now, Bregman is still in play. Alonso's in play. Potential trades are still in play. But the Yankees have taken all the Soto money, which he turned his back on, and have turned it into 3 players with a 4th guy still to be delivered. I tend to think the Yankees won this thing, even though Soto and his MVP credentials have gone across town, because there's nothing on that Mets roster that scares me. Or am I wrong? If you're a Met fan, pile on, go ahead. But I know what I know, and I don't like the Mets roster. I don't like the Mets pitching staff at all.
You know, what's funny is this obviously is a free agent maneuver, but the 2 trades involving Soto, you can make an argument the Nationals and the Padres both won those trades. And now we have a sort of kind of like a trade, you know, in New York. And I think you can also make the case that the team that got rid of Soto is the team that won.
There's no doubt Soto's got great credentials. 285 lifetime hitter, I think 201 career home runs so far. But there are deficiencies. You know, on the field, he plays the outfield sometimes like there's landmines out there.
Oh, totally.
If I don't catch a ball, it might kill me. It might hit my head. He doesn't thunder on the bases. I mean, he's heavy-legged, etc. And then there's the whole clubhouse chemistry thing. I mean, the stuff that happened in Washington, well, obviously what happened here, the way he conducted his exit business. He has no friends in the Yankee clubhouse. He's never talked to anybody since the last game of the season. Nobody called to say, great year. Nobody called to say, good luck to you going to the Mets. Congratulations. Nobody. What does that say about Soto the person? We know what he is, quote, as a player statistically. We also know the deficiencies as a player. And now you got the Yankees are stockpiling all these players using Soto's money. I said this to John, I went back and did an evaluation of Soto's statistics. And this is a guy that turned down $440 million from Washington and forced the trade, and then forced the trade out of San Diego. He hit 236 one season. He hit 246 another season.
Yeah.
Dude is making $51 million this coming year in New York. If dude's hitting 236 or 246, his life's going to be miserable in New York.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he's going to get raked over the coals by all those tabloids and everything else. I just remember when the Padres got Soto, I was really excited. And I kind of like the Soto shuffle, and all that, just a little bit of brashness, the way he like nods at the pitcher. Yeah, that was a good pitch.
While I was hitting 226.
Yeah, well, that was the other side of it.
For 3 months.
We saw how his performance was subpar. We saw how that attitude seemed to rub other teammates the wrong way. So, Steve Cohen, you guys inherited him. We'll see what happens out there, but I'm relieved as a Padre fan that he's not here.
You're a baseball fan. Go to my website. Read my column I wrote on Soto this week. I did some great journalistic stuff.
Yeah,
if I write it, I mean, I got him addicted to reading my column every day. If I wrote about Soto, you should read what I wrote about Soto, and you can always email me back because there's an email address right on my website. But I was bothered because he comes off as Mr. Me, Myself, and I.
It's just a great line. It's perfect for him.
Great offensive player, but there's so many other deficiencies, I think, as the player, and some of this junk turns me off as a person.
Well, there's a clip art that we use sometimes in some of the video thumbnails where it's a picture of Juan Soto wearing a Juan Soto shirt. And it's just perfect. Like when you say Mr. Me, Myself, and I, it's like perfect. Okay.
Okay, next one.
Okay, let's go here. Talking about the signing day. This is from Plaza. And he says signing day is the first Wednesday of February. This relatively new concept of an early signing day was brought into existence primarily because most all the coaches across the country, like Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin, and most coaches in the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, Old Pac-12, etc., wanted, cried for, lobbied for the early signing day. It wasn't that big a deal until NIL and the portal became out of control monsters that they are today. It's laughable that coaches are whining and crying now after they got what they wanted.
Yeah, but these are all separate entity things. I mean, the early signing date was great. We're going to offer half our scholarships. We lock down the guys we really want. Then we can use the back half with the scholarships we have left to evaluate if anything changes or the transfers. So it made sense. Now this thing is so crisis-filled. I mean, what happened at Washington State in a 24-hour period, the demise of the head coach who quit, the loss of his 2 key assistants, then the loss of the quarterback that they offered the world to, it's catastrophic in Pullman, Washington. Now, I'm not talking about how crappy the weather is in Spokane right now, but how what's happened in the Washington State program is just, it's devastating. And there are so many coaches nationwide who are saying this has been negative. And these include guys in the Power 4 conferences that's saying it's tampering with our players. SMU's coach lost his mind this week. He says, people are calling my players, coming out of team meetings, wanting to talk to them about transfer. And these kids are trying to get ready to go play in the championship playoffs. So why the NCAA? I mean, I'm going to charge them with malfeasance, or maybe it should be bleeping incompetence. Why they allow this portal to happen in December while there are bowl games to be played, or happen in the midst of the college football play, letting kids jump into the portal. There's no reason you can't wait till January 10th or January 20th and then open up the portal once the championship game is played. But to allow this in December, the chaos it's created, and everybody stealing everybody else's players, big time versus big time, or big time coming down on stealing from the group of fives. To me, it's just catastrophic to the game. And there's no doubt we love to watch Oregon play Ohio State or Penn State and what's going to happen to players. No doubt about these games are going to be fun on Saturday. But the damage that's been done to college football everywhere, I think is terrible. Dave Clawson's a really good guy, good coach, Wake Forest. Success at a place that is kind of bottom rung. He's losing players every day. And he woke up one morning and said, I'm done with this. I can't deal with this anymore because it's so out of control. So this is on NCAA leadership. Mark Emmert, who left, and obviously the new guy coming in from Boston, who's the president of the NCAA. They can't control it, can't contain it. They have to get this under control and change the structure.
Isn't it like hypocritical for coaches to be complaining about this? Because the coaches are making $2 million, $5 million, $10 million or more a year. They have essentially a marketplace where they can shop themselves when their contracts up. But the players, they weren't getting anything before. I mean, the TV money for college football and basketball is like shooting through the roof. And then Ed O'Bannon, wasn't getting paid for name, image, and likeness, and he sued, rightfully so.
And everybody's suing the NCAA now every other week on some occasion.
Yeah, well, see, players have been screwed for decades.
Yep.
So ultimately, this is good for the players. I think good for the sport, but they got to just solve the logistics.
The calendar of events has to be changed radically. And they're saying they are changing the transfer portal. It will be a 1-month portal. Now the question is, move it from December into January when all the games are complete. And you give these players 24 days to make their decision, stay or go. But this is disgraceful. They got these players at SMU. Their quarterbacks are getting phone calls the minute they leave a team meeting from, quote, agents who want to shop them, and they're trying to get ready to play Penn State.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be wanted. If you're one of the players, that ain't so shabby. But yeah, they need to kind of put some guardrails around it.
Okay, let's do a couple more social media here before we put a lid on this.
Okay, let's go here to Marco. He goes, Miserable Mark asks, why is Lee such an Angels hater?
I am not an Angel hater. You've heard me talk glowingly about all the things they did back in the day. You heard me talk about how the whole atmosphere of Angel baseball changed when Artie Moreno bought it from Disney, which had kind of let it fall into neglect. But then you get all these mistakes that Artie Moreno made and the contracts he gave out to troubled players, injured players, players with bad attitude. And look what's happened. 99-loss season. You have not been in the playoffs in a decade. You have wasted away the career of Ohtani and Mike Trout. I'm just dealing with the facts on the piece of paper with opinions. I'm not an Angel hater. Orange County's a market unto itself. I think if you put a winner in Orange County, you will draw 3 million. But Artie Moreno's made so many mistakes. So I'm not sure why you come up with the ideology, I'm an Angel hater. I'm just dealing with where your franchise is, what it's become under that owner. And like I said early in this podcast, if he can get Nolan Arenado here in a trade, do it. Because then you rebuild your credibility. And by the way, you probably make your lineup a lot more. Now, whether or not they have anything left in the farm system is going to make the next jump up of players who help them, I don't know. But this shopping at Dollar General sounds good, okay. Getting Kyle Hendricks and those guys is good because those are established players, the Kevin Newmans of the world. That's not going to make you a pennant contender. Now, you get an Arenado in a trade. Now, suddenly the fans will take a look-see and say, yeah, Artie's really desperately trying to make this happen. But if they come away from what's left of the offseason, they haven't done anything of significance, then I'm going to continue to be critical. I'm not a hater. I'm just dealing with where you are, which is a 99-loss season. I don't know, John, is Marco right or am I right?
Yeah, the fans are always going to be lovers and haters, and they're always the ones that are fighting it out. Journalists attempt to be objective, and I think you do to a great degree. You'll call it like it is, good, bad, or ugly. But have you ever experienced other journalists, that you've crossed paths with that legitimately were lovers or haters of certain teams?
That's a good question. I think it's my perspective of the role of the guy. If you're a talk show host on a flagship station that has the rights to your team, I would not bash my team that's on my station. However, I would make pointed comments to get John, Life of Riley line in Poway, first-time caller. What do you think about what I just said about that bad trade the Padres made? And I'd let John make his critique comment, pro or negative.
Okay.
Role of a columnist in a newspaper is really different. I think columnist has a right to write and say whatever he wants. Columnist has a right to use the word Dollar General as it relates to the player acquisitions the Angels have made. Columnist has a right to say this is bad for baseball to allow the Dodgers to defer so much money, the Ohtani contract, but the union has signed off on us. So what the Dodgers are doing is okay under the umbrella of the collective bargaining agreement. Now, the columnist doesn't have any vested interest, I don't think, except to tell the truth or express an opinion about who's done a good job, done a bad job. A little bit different if you're a play-by-play guy on a flagship station. But like I never had a problem with the Chargers ever. And we went through a lot of real bad years when I was voice of the Chargers. But I would put topics on the table and say, this defensive tackle's got a drug problem. What are you going to do, Bobby Beathard or Steve Wertmeyer, about this player with a drug problem? And then the fans would chime in on my stance or say they love this guy, they hate this guy, etc. So the roles, depending on where you are in the media address book, will change how you deal with business. But at the end of the day, this is the storyline. This is the topic. This is my opinion. What do you think? That's how I always did it. I don't think you have great credibility if you're going to sit there and sing Kumbaya all the time, that everything is beautiful with the team on my station. The Angels had 99-loss season. Angels are angry at a bunch of the media who are very critical. Damn, we got a right to be critical because you gave us 99 losses this past season. You got the worst farm system in baseball. I haven't been in the playoffs in 10 freaking years. And the media is just supposed to sing, hey, everything is beautiful. No? Go ahead, John, your turn.
Well, people give Southern California sports fans a hard time because the media is soft, is what people say. You go back to New York or Philly and the media there will rip your head off. They'll ask the tough questions. They'll criticize. Do you buy off on that whole SoCal culture thing?
There's not a lot of heat that's delivered out here aside from the summer weather. Yeah, there should be more heat. It's a responsibility of the guy in the media to say, okay, I totally disagree with what you just did, or I'm going to question you why the hell you've done such a poor job. Scoreboard does not lie. You are what you are. New York, that's a really extreme area. Boston, Philadelphia. I mean, there's a lot of critics out there, but that comes with the territory. And if you don't like it, you ignore it. Don't respond to it. If you think somebody's been really unfair, okay, that's fine. You don't have to answer those guys' questions. If you want to go to war with somebody in the media over what they think is really unfair, that's okay. The media will probably respond. Media usually has the last word, though, in those wars.
Right.
So you better pick your fights correctly along the way. It's a tough call. Nobody wants to live in a negative environment. There can only be one World Series or one Super Bowl champion. In Boston, they are just bagging on the Patriots right now. The print media and talk shows up there. But look at what your franchise has become. Belichick left a mess behind. So as much as we adore what Belichick has done for Super Bowl rings, Tom Brady, at the end of the day, I think their record since Brady retired is 32-50. Now, they finally have a quarterback, but the roster is negligible of talent. I demand you look at their depth chart and tell me there's any playmakers on the team aside from the kid quarterback that they force-fed.
Yeah.
So I think the media's got a right to ask the tough-ass questions to Robert Kraft, why you allowed this to happen, or to Belichick. But over the course of 24 years, they were pretty good. So you go through cycles. They were good here. They're bad here. You just got to write and comment on what you say. At least that's how I view it. And maybe you totally disagree with me, but I'm not a hater. I'm just giving you the facts and figures. The scoreboard does not lie.
Yeah, it's hard to come up with a lot of positives around the Angels these days.
Yeah, concur with you. Now, Can it flip? Sure.
Yeah.
Have they drafted in the farm system? Well, they got the first wave of kids that are there. They don't have enough players. And if the owner is lecturing the media, budget's going up. We solved the TV crisis with the regional network. We will take the budget up. Okay. Why are you shopping at Dollar General still? Get me Nolan Arenado. Go get me Corbin Burns, although 7-year contract to a pitcher, that's a little bit over my line. But go do something to sales pitch me that you're taking a step forward, because otherwise, as much as I might like Kyle Hendricks when he was healthy with the Cubs, was a rock-solid, trusty veteran, or I like Kevin Newman and his multi-position stuff, at the end of the day, you're still 99 loss team. So what have you done? So give me something more that says, okay, we're on the road back, etc. I'm not a hater. I'm just dealing with, I'm sorry, the scoreboard does not lie. That's it.
I mean, it's just sad that Mike Trout hasn't had more postseason success.
Sure.
And he deserves it.
Yeah. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. Maybe he is. But boy, dude's had a tough time staying on the field. And Rendon, who never had injury problems in Washington, he's missed so many games. I went back and did a statistical study. I think he's played 205 games. He's missed 480 games.
That's unbelievable.
He's been hurt 4 years in a row. And it's not that he's a bum and he's out of shape. He gets hurt playing the game. Now, he did say something stupid last summer where this isn't that important to me. Well, excuse me. You're making an enormous amount of money. Don't say that. That is inviting a lot of critique, and that's a really stupid statement.
Well, especially when there's so many athletes that maybe got screwed in their career, never made it to the show, and that would have been their life goal. And then Rendon says, "Yeah, I don't really care about it."
Yeah, I'm making my money on the 1st and 15th, and
that's not good.
That was absurd. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed everything we try to bring your way. We do sports talk the way it should be done. We put a ton of topics on the table. It's great to have you participate in Fans Forum. Please check my website. There's a lot of great written stuff. You got to read my one man's opinion columns I wrote this week. It'll take you 2 minutes. You might agree, you might disagree, but I ask you to sample what we're doing. Want you to share, want you to subscribe. Tell everybody what we do Monday and Thursdays. Subscribe on the YouTube channel so you'll get the alerts every time we put something up. Join my social media team, Hacksaw's Twitter All-Stars on X. Just go to @Hacksaw1090. Hit the subscribe button. Want you to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. I swear to you, I'm going to get the guy wearing a bad hoodie to buy us a shot of Jack Daniels when we have our first meeting in January.
We just got to organize it.
Yeah, we have so many things that we're juggling here. Just a program note, we'll be back here Monday at 1 p.m. Because of the Christmas holiday. Next Thursday's program is going to be pushed back into Friday. So join us Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock post-Christmas. And, of course, we'll have baseball to talk about. We'll have playoffs to talk about when we rejoin you Monday. Don't wear that damn sweatshirt again, John. Geez, that's worse than anything I wear, and I wear a lot of bad gear. Hey, have yourself a great sports weekend.
Maybe I should get an Albuquerque Isotope sweatshirt.
That's possible. That's different.
I have an El Paso Chihuahuas hat and T-shirt. I could wear that.
Good deal. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll catch you come Monday.
Yeah, come Monday. We got Thursday Night Football tonight.
You have yourself a great sports weekend. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. We'll talk to you Monday at 1 p.m. on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.